I will not worship that. No! With all our hearts we follow you.
Bow your heads!
We seek your presence.
With all my heart I follow you. I fear you. I seek your presence.
Bring them!
Oh, my friends, your faith will be tested now.
Daniel! What's wrong with them? Why will your friends not bow to me?
I assure you, sire, they will serve you faithfully, all their lives, as I will, but they will only worship God. I will make them bow.
With all our hearts we follow you. We fear you. We seek your presence. With all our hearts we follow you. We fear you. We seek your presence.
When we wish to bend something that is hard and unyielding, what do we do with it? We put it into the fire.
Majesty,
take him.
We fear you, and we seek your presence.
Burn them! Majesty, no! Burn them! What? No! Bring oil! Come! Fire! Bring me fire!
Hear my cry. The cords of death entangle me. The anguish of the grave consumes me. Do not ignore my tears. I am overcome by sorrow. I call upon the name of the Lord. Lord, save
My enemies will be gone. They will turn back in shame. Why do they not burn?
People of Judah, rise! God is with us! He's with us! God is with us!
my brethren, be strong in the Most High, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yah, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand and withstand in the evil day. And having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, take the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High Yah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1,
0. Our family of the Most High Yah, we welcome you to another Sword of the Spirit audio teaching, and as always, we greet you on this beautiful Sabbath, and it is beautiful because we are here to see another day. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from where shall my help come from? My help comes from Yah, the maker of heavens and the earth. He will not give your foot to slip. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will not slumber nor sleep. Yah is the one keeping you. Yah is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Yah shall keep you from all evil. He shall keep your soul. Yah shall keep your going out and your coming in, from now on until forever. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with today's teaching. We greet you in the name of our Master, Yeshua HaMashiach. Welcome to today's 178th audio teaching. Shabbat Shalom, sis. How are you?
Shabbat Shalom, sis. I'm well. As you said, it is a beautiful day today. Mm-hmm. Just every Sabbath is, especially when those, when you are able to see it. So praise be to Yah. That was a beautiful reading.
Yes. Psalms 121. For anyone who would like to go and read that. That's always one of my favorites. Psalms 121. And definitely now. So how was your week?
I'm good. I had a great week. Started to get hooked up at the end of the week with this cold virus, because it's going around at our school. But praise be to Yah. I hope I don't get the other virus. But I can't complain. I had a great week. How was your week?
It was okay. Very relaxing. Yah, he continues to just, move. As he does in my life. And so I'm just continuing to see all his promises manifest. Just everything, his word is true. He's faithful. He's just. And just I was just thanking him, just glad that he is the Almighty One that I serve, and just thanking him for just having eyes that can see, and just how many people who woke up today who are in darkness. And yet they believe they're in the light. Just to have eyes that can see on today, to have the understanding that he's given to me. I could be walking amongst the dead. And today I'm just grateful that my eyes are open, that I'm not just here, but I'm here with a purpose, and that I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm actually walking in what he's called me to do. And just doing what I do, this again, it just brings me joy. So I cannot complain about anything today. So all praise be to Yah today. So we're going to go ahead and get right into today's 178th audio teaching, which is entitled Salted with Fire, the Salt Covenant. This is going to be a great teaching. I can feel it. I'm excited to present this today because I was just in awe as his Ruach was helping me with this teaching. And so today's teaching, again, it is entitled Salted with Fire, the Salt Covenant. And so in Mark 9, verse 49, the Messiah, he gives a definite promise. And in Mark 9 and 49, you will read where it says, everyone will be salted with fire. And so today we're going to talk about what this particular scriptural verse means. What does this promise mean when he says that everyone will be salted with fire? And we're going to talk about the element of salt, why it is not only important to man, but even more so to the Father and the Son. And so today we're going to not only reveal the spiritual connection between salt and fire, but we're going to also reveal how they are a direct link to salvation, the burning bush, because we're going to visit that, as well as the revealing of what happened to Lot's wife. And something that just kind of just blew this out the water was the fact that salt had everything to do with the everlasting covenant that Yah made with the children of Israel. So today, you're definitely going to want to make sure you're taking notes. You don't want to miss this teaching. And so the call-in number is 712-775-7085, and the access code is 959481 if you would like to share with anyone. Okay, and so before we get into our teaching, last week's 178th teaching was entitled The Wedding Planner, The Journey of the Bride. When I tell you this was an awesome lesson, I'm telling you, you definitely want to go back to this teaching. Last week we explored how bearing the name of Yah and bearing fruit is directly linked to pursuit of one, deepening their relationship with the Father. We also reveal how the tabernacle of Yah and its specific constructs of the patterns, how this foreshadows the arduous planning and journey of the soon-to-be bride. It was just an awesome, awesome, awesome teacher. So multifaceted. Believe me when I tell you, it will not disappoint. And we're going to continue today because it seems like the tabernacle of Yah, even though the last 3 or 4 teachings have not been entitled that, only one out of the last 4, it seems like this is something that is not going away, and I have a feeling it's not going away anytime soon because he keeps expanding on the tabernacle of Yah, and I'm thinking I'm doing a lesson that is completely different, and he's just continuing to expand. And so if you did not, before we get done with today's teaching, if you have not listened to the Tabernacle of Yah lesson, please go back. It's our 175th teaching. Please go back and check that teaching out because it is going to truly help you with every lesson moving forward. If you want to truly know how to deepen your relationship with the Father Yah and what is required, what steps you need to take, and just coming into a deeper understanding of how to be in his manifest presence, you definitely want to check this out. It opened up so many things, And so even helping you, that lesson, the Tabernacle of Yah, will even help you to understand when we did our sexual immorality lesson, where it talks about that we are not to fornicate because when you fornicate, you are sinning against your own self. For many years, I did not understand what that meant, to sin against your own self. And with that teaching, I was able to understand that. And so Yah's desire is to tabernacle with us. This is something that with these lessons that he's been having me do, I've been seeing this over and over. He strongly desires, this is his desire. His desire is to tabernacle, to dwell with his people. And many of us are so busy looking for the next move of Yah that we fail to realize that we are that move. We're looking for Yah to move, But again, we fail to realize that we are that move. Yah is looking for that man or that woman that he can reveal his power through. Okay? He wants us to become the move that he can reveal his power through. So when people see us and when people come in contact with us, they can say, okay, they know Yah. That's Yah. They're on fire. Through them, we now see his glory, as opposed to what we talked about last week. Through you make his name blaspheme. And so we need to get our lives right so that we can become the move of the Father Yah. Okay? And so in 1 Corinthians, if you can go quickly, chapter 9, verse 25. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25 says, and every man who battles in the contest frees his mind from everything else, and yet they run to win a crown that is perishable, but we to win one that is everlasting. And a phrase that stood out to me in 1 Corinthians 9 and 25, where it talks about battling in this contest, okay? It says, the one who is battling in this contest, because we know we are in a race, and we want the reward, we want the prize, we want to win. And he says, those who battle in this contest frees his mind from everything else. That means you have tunnel vision. You are freeing your mind from everything else that will hinder you being successful to win the battle. So I have an example, as I always do, that I made up, and I call this example knock knock. Okay? And so what I want you to do is I want you to literally close your eyes, okay, and picture everything that you have ever wanted. Okay? Close your eyes and picture everything that you have ever wanted. And now I want you to picture a door, okay, an open door. Not just any open door, though, but an open door that is narrow, okay? An open door that is so narrow that it leaves no room for anything else but for you to barely squeeze through it. So I hope you have this picture in your mind. Now, when you get the opportunity to peek through this narrow door, this narrow open door, okay, because you're still picturing this narrow open door. When you get the opportunity to peek through this narrow open door, you find that everything that you have ever desired in life is on the other side of that door. But the catch is this. You have to make it through that door in order to obtain it. In order for you to obtain what you have always desired is there. The door is open, but it's narrow, and there's only enough room for you to fit through that door to get to it. Now, let's flip it. We're going to picture that the thing that you, as a believer and a disciple, have ever wanted is salvation, or the salvation of Yah. And all you have to do is to get through this door. But remember, the door is narrow, and it only has enough room for you, and you alone, to barely squeeze through it. And I say barely. But you've got all of your favorites with you. Okay? You're standing at this door. You got all of your favorites with you. You've got all of the things that please your heart's desire with you. You have on all your carnal and worldly possessions. You have on layers upon layers upon layers of carnal clothing on you. And the only way that you can get through this door is to take it off. The only way that you can get through this door is to completely strip yourself and totally get naked. So my question is, what do you do? So let me say this. The kingdom of Yah is so narrow that it says that the righteous will barely make it in. The righteous will barely make it in. That's how narrow the kingdom of Yah is. It's so narrow that the righteous will barely make it in. So if it is so narrow that the righteous will barely make it in, what hope is there for the unrighteous? And so having said that, again, there are so many of us that have so many issues and so many sinful behaviors that we refuse to leave behind, that they are unwilling to part ways with, that they will find not only their way to fit through this door, but to get it through this door before this door closes. Again, the kingdom of Yah is narrow. It's so narrow that there isn't any room for us to bring our baggage of carnality, our baggage of worldliness. And sadly, there are many, or shall I say, I'll say that. There are many who are so used to misusing and abusing grace that today we barely find anyone who strives for perfection. No one strives to live a set-apart life anymore. Everyone just chalks it up to, nobody's perfect. God knows my heart. Then they go and live a life of hypocrisy. They go to their Sunday services or their assemblies or their gatherings. They read a few scriptures to clear their conscience from the sins that they have been knowingly committing all week, and then feel vindicated and confident in themselves that they are saved. This is the repetitive cycle that most are on. And those of you who are listening, you know this is true. This is the cycle that they're on, and they truly believe that they will be allowed entrance into the kingdom. They have on all their carnality, all of their worldliness, all of their issues, all the things that he told them to leave behind and let go of so that you can come through this door. And they're trying to squeeze through this door with all of these things on, knowing that the only way they're going to get through this door, because the kingdom of Yah is so narrow, is to strip themselves naked and leave it behind. And most people won't do it. They'll continue. They'll probably put butter on themselves and twist and turn until they pass out to try to fit through that door, like sometimes ladies do when we trying to fit in those jeans and we on the floor. We got one little foot on the wall. That means if you got to do all of that, that means they don't fit and you need to go find some more jeans, right? And so, again, no one strives to live holy before our Abba Yah. And so, do you know what it means to strive? According to the Blue Letter Bible, to strive, it means to struggle. And I want you to write these things down. To strive means to struggle or contest. That means if you're contesting against something, you're fighting. It says literally to compete for a prize. It says to labor, to contend with the adversary, to fight. It says a metaphor that means to contend, to struggle with difficulties and dangers, to endeavor with strenuous zeal to obtain something. And so go to Luke 13. We're going to read verses 23 and 24. Luke 13, verses 23 and 24. And make sure you're taking plenty of notes, because this is going to be a lesson where you will need to take notes. Luke 13:23 says, and a man asked him, he's referring to our Messiah. And a man asked Yeshua, Master, are the ones being saved few? So he wants to know, are there only going to be a few people that are going to be saved? And then Yeshua said unto him in verse 24, strive to enter in through the narrow gate. For I say to you that many will seek to enter in and will not have strength. Yeshua himself said you should strive to enter in through the narrow gate. Like I used the example for the door. You shouldn't be trying to go find the door that's wide, the door that there is no struggle to get through, the door where you don't have to have any difficulties. You don't have to do any type of labor. There's no zeal. There's nothing that you're fighting for. Yeshua says that you should strive to enter in through the narrow gate. And so we are called to struggle. We are called to fight. We are called to persevere and to endure. Because this is one of the fruits of the Spirit, right? Two of the fruits of the Spirit is patience and self-control. We don't develop patience and self-control unless we learn to fight. And I'm highlighting these two of the fruits of the Spirit that Galatians 5 speaks of, because these are the two that you're going to need to fight. You're going to have to know how to struggle. You're going to have to learn how to persevere and endure. And so, again, we don't develop patience and self-control unless we learn to fight. Learn to fight. Unless we learn how to fight and scrap, okay, like they say in the streets. Learn how to fight and scrap to persevere. And not only to persevere, but to overcome the fire of purification, that we might endure to the end, that we might be saved. Remember, Moses, go to Exodus 3. We're going to read Exodus 3, verses 1 through 3, because remember, when Moses had an encounter with the burning bush, because I'm going to reveal something to you, and this lesson has peaks of aha moments, and this is one of them. And I was floored when Yah revealed what I'm getting ready to reveal to you. Moses, when Moses had an encounter with the burning bush, what did he notice? Let's read Exodus 3. And we're going to read verses 1 through 3. And Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock behind the wilderness and came to the mountain of the Most High Yah, to Horeb. And the messenger of Yah appeared to him in a flame of fire from the middle of a thorn bush. So if you do not know who Yeshua is, okay, go back in our archives and check out our teaching on who is the Messiah, who is Yeshua, because he is the messenger of Yah. He is his right-hand man. He is his right hand, rather. And so when you see in the scripture the salvation of Yah, the messenger of Yah, Yah's salvation, okay, this is all referring to our master Yeshua. This is who he was before he came in the flesh. And so when it says, and the messenger of Yah appeared to Moses in a flame of fire from the middle of a thorn bush, And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush was burning with fire, and the thorn bush was not burned up. And Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight. What sight is he talking about? Okay, so I see once again they want to interrupt me, so let me go back a little bit. When Moses had an encounter with the burning bush, I want you to pay attention to what he noticed. Let me read Exodus 3, 1 through 3, because I don't know where they cut me off, okay? And so, again, Moses was tending to the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock behind the wilderness and came to the mountain of the Most High Yah to Horeb. And the messenger of Yah appeared to him in a flame of fire from the middle of a thorn bush. And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush was burning with fire, and the thorn bush was not burned up. And Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight. So what great sight is Moses talking about? The sight of why the thorn bush was not burned up, as you continue reading. Moses is wondering, like, wait a minute, hold up. I'm looking at this thorn bush that is on fire. This thorn bush is on fire and it's not burned up. How is this so? Why? Moses is asking in Exodus 3 and 3. He wants to know, and he calls this a great sight. He says, why is this thorn bush not burned up? And so, likewise, just as the bush that burned and was on fire, yet it was not consumed, we too, when we are put in the fire of affliction to be burned, we must make certain that we overcome. When you read Revelations 3 and 5, he says, he that overcomes, the same shall be clothed in white raiment. And he says, and I will not blot out his name out of the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. And so we must know that through the fire that Yah allows us to go through, we must trust and we must know that it is for our own good. We must trust and we must know that Yah is only going to allow it to happen, but when he allows it, it is not to destroy us, but to purify us and to test and try our faith. And so I want you to go to Psalms. I want to read a precept, Psalm 66. And we're going to read verses 10 through 12. Psalm 66, 10 through 12. This is David. David says, for you, O Yah, have proved us. You have tested us as silver is refined. You have brought us into the net. You laid afflictions on our loins. You have let men ride at our head. And listen to what he said. He said, you let men ride. I mean, this is something that you have allowed. He says, we went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to plenty. Kind of meditate on that last part of that scriptural verse in verse 12. He says that David said, we went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to plenty. So David says, Yah, that you have proved us. You have. How does one get proved? If you're in education, how do you know? How can your student prove that they deserve that A? How do they prove it? Right? What do you give them to prove? Don't you give them some type of an assessment? Don't you give them a what? A test? Right? David says, for you, O Yah, have proved us. You have tested us as silver is refined. You have brought us into the net. So it is he that has put you in the net. He says, you laid afflictions on our loins. You have let men ride at our head. We went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to plenty. That's powerful. Now, I want to go back to Exodus 3 because I want to bring something out that I had not noticed before. I want to go back and I want to read Exodus 3, verses 1 through 3 again. And Moses was tending to the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock behind the wilderness and came to the mountain of the Most High Yah, to Horeb. Let me take some water, I'm sorry. And the messenger of Yah appeared to him in a flame of fire from the middle of a thorn bush. And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush was burning with fire, and the thorn bush was not burned up. And Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight, as to why the thorn bush is not burned up. Now, it says that the fire was burning in what kind of tree? What kind of tree? Underline, highlight, circle, whatever you want. Thorn. The fire was burning in a thorn bush. So, I want to share some information because I had to do a little bit of research on this. I was led to look up, some information on thorns. And according to Wikipedia, thorns, they're hard, rigid extensions, and I'm reading from what it's saying, okay? It says that thorns are hard, rigid extensions or modifications with sharp, stiff ends and generally serve the same functions. It says their function is to physically deter animals from eating the plant material, okay? It says the predominant functions of thorns are not limited to just defense from physical attacks by herbivores, those animals who like plants only, and other types of animals. It says in some cases, spines have been shown to shade or insulate the plant that grow them. Now, we know what it means to insulate, okay, helping to control the temperature, right? To insulate the plants that grow them, thereby protecting them from extreme temperatures. What extreme temperatures are we talking about here? We're talking about the fire, right, as in the burning bush. It says that the predominant functions of thorns is not only limited to defending the plant from being physically attacked by other animals, but it says that it also has the ability to shade or insulate the plant that grow them by protecting them from extreme temperatures. Okay? So, do you think that of all the trees or bushes, do you think that it was a coincidence that the messenger of Yah, a.k.a. Yeshua, appeared in a thorn bush after what we have just learned about the thorn? How it is able to shade and insulate the plants that grow the thorn, protecting them from extreme temperatures? Okay? Now, I could be wrong, but what we have learned about the thorns and its purpose, it seems very unlikely that I'm wrong about this, but you have to say one thing, that this is quite interesting. Now, listen to what else Wikipedia also said. It also said that thorns are modified branches or stem. I'm going to say this again. Wikipedia said that thorns are modified branches or stems. You might want to write that down. Thorns are modified branches or stems. Now, we know that when something is modified, doesn't that mean that it's changed or converted, right? Because that's what it means to modify, to change or to convert. Now, did not Yeshua say that I am the vine and you are the branches? Okay? I want to read some more. It says, thorns are hard, woody, pointed structures meant for protection. they are provided with vascular tissue. So thorns are provided with vascular tissues, and it says, which may develop from the axillary bud or terminal buds. Vascular tissue is a complex conducting tissue formed of more than one cell type found in the vascular plant. It says the primary component of vascular tissue are xylem and phloem. I'm gonna spell them so you can write them out because I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. XYLEM, it might be xylem or phloem, PHLOEM. So I'm just going to say xylem or phloem. It says these two tissues transport fluid and nutrients internally. So, again, the thorn is provided with vascular tissue, okay? And these two tissues that I named, the xylem and phloem, they transport fluid and nutrients internally. It says all the vascular tissues within a particular plant together constitutes the vascular tissue system of that plant. It says since the xylem and phloem function in the conduction of water, minerals, and nutrients throughout the plant, it is not surprising that their form should be similar to pipes. So the form of the xylem and the phloem, which is the tissue, it makes a form of like a pipe. And their function is to supply water, mineral, and nutrients throughout the plant. It says, as the plant grows, new vascular tissue differentiates in the growing tips of the plant. It says the new tissue is aligned with existing vascular tissue. And this is what stood out to me. It says maintaining its connection with the plant. Now, what have we just learned? We know that the vine, let's talk about the vine. Okay. The vine feeds the branches. The vine feeds the branches. And it says that a thorn is a modified branch or stem. The vine feeds the branches. And so our spiritual nourishment comes through our Savior, our Master Yeshua HaMashiach. It also says that the vine gives water through the vascular tissues, give water to the branches. We know that Yeshua Messiah is the living water, okay? It also says that the vine lifts, supports, and anchors the plant. This is from Wikipedia. It says it lifts, supports, and anchors the plant. Now, we know that our Messiah anchors the body. And we know that it is only in and through him that we can do all things, because it is he who does what? Strengthens us. Did not Yeshua say, I am the bread of life? Whoever comes to me will never hunger, and whoever believes in me will never thirst, right? Because he is providing that. Go quickly to John 15. We're going to read verses 1 through 5. John 15, 1 through 5 says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me not bearing fruit, he takes it away, and each one bearing fruit, he prunes so that it may bear more fruit. The pruning is the fire, okay? This is the going through. He prunes it so that it may bear more fruit. He said, you are already pruned because of the words which I have spoken to you. Remain in me and I in you. As the branch is not able to bear fruit of itself unless it remains in the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, whoever abides in me and I in him. Remember, a thorn is nothing but a modified branch. Yeshua is the vine. We are the branch. Whoever abides in me and I in him, this man will produce plenteous fruit, because without me you are not able to do anything. And so, again, the thorn protects and is provided with vascular tissue that not only provides it with the minerals, the nutrients, and the water that it needs to sustain and replenish itself, but also to be able to endure extreme temperatures, a.k.a. the heat, a.k.a. the fire. Who is the messenger of Yah? We read when Moses had the encounter with the burning bush, the messenger of Yah is Yeshua. Who are the thorns? A thorn is nothing but a modified branch. Who are the branches? Didn't he not say that he's the vine and we the branches? So he says, if you abide in me and I abide in you, was not he abiding in the thorn? He says, are you getting what I'm saying? I'm hoping that, because I can't talk to anybody, but I'm hoping that you're having an aha moment on why this thorn bush was not burned up. Moses said, I want to see this great sight as to why. Out of all of the bushes, all the trees that he could have revealed himself in, the messenger of Yah, Yeshua, because no man has seen the Father or heard the Father's voice and lived. We know that it was Yeshua who was doing all the work, who was doing all the communicating with Israel. If you do not understand that part, you're going to have difficulty understanding what it is that I'm saying now. The messenger of Yah was in the thorn, abiding in the thorn. The thorn is abiding in him. If you abide in him and he abides in you, we just got finished reading. Even though we're in the fire, we will not be consumed. Are you understanding this? So let's go back to this lesson. We must trust. And again, just last thing. Again, the thorn is able, because it is supplied with the minerals, the nutrients, and the water that it needs to sustain itself. It says that it is able to endure the extreme temperatures. Who is providing the water? Who is the water? Is it not Yeshua? This is the reason why this bush was not burning. This is the reason why it was no coincidence that he was in the thorn bush. He could have picked any tree, but it was specifically for a reason. And so again, we must trust and know that Yah will allow us to go through the fire, but not to destroy us, but to purify us and to test and try our faith. This is why he said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. It is in his word. It's his word that strengthens us. It is his word that sustains us. Who is the word? Is not our Messiah the word? So while we go through the fire, okay, because he told them that you are already pruned because of this word. It is his word that strengthens and sustains us while we go through the fire, because when you're in the fire, you are close to death. When you're in the fire, you're close to death when you're in the fire, right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 3 quickly. Go to Daniel chapter 3, verses 16 through 18, because none in the scriptures were tested like the 3 Hebrew boys. Remember, if you listen at the beginning, if you were unsure at the beginning of this audio teaching, we began with an audio clip. This was Daniel. The 3 Hebrew boys, they would not bow to this statue. And Nebuchadnezzar, like, Daniel, how come they not going to bow? What's wrong with them? And he's like, they're not going to bow to anybody but the Most High Yah. So he's like, okay, I know what I'll do. We get ready to go put them in the fire. And they were praying the entire time They never buckled, and they trusted him and whatever his will was. So when we read Daniel chapter 3, it says, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our Yah whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace." So they're saying, look, we don't have no words for you. If you're going to put us in the fire, go ahead. And if it's his will that we burn, then so be it. But he says if it's not, he will be able to deliver us from this burning fiery furnace that you plan on putting us in. And he says that he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. He says, but if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship this golden image that you have set up. So they were willing to die. They didn't care. They were not moved because they said they were getting ready to put them in the fire. He's like, look, if it is Yah's will to deliver us from this furnace, from this burning fiery furnace, he says he will deliver us out of your hand. He said, but if it's not, then let his will be done. He said, but one thing you can know for sure, he said, we're not getting ready to serve your gods. We're not getting ready to worship this golden image that you have set up. So basically, he's like, do what you're going to do. And so just like Moses, and if you didn't read the rest, you can go to Daniel chapter 3 if you want to read the rest of it. As you heard in the audio clip in the beginning, Nebuchadnezzar, like, why have they not burned? He said, how is it that they in the fire and they not burned up? How are they in the fire? I am the vine, you are the branches. A thorn is a modified, a converted, a changed branch. When we come into the Messiah and truly accept him and we walk, we are no longer who we once were. We are changed. We have been converted. You are not a thorn if you have not been changed. You are not a thorn if you have not been converted. Those 3 Hebrew boys were thorns, modified, converted thorns. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. And so just like Moses marveled that the thorn bush did not burn, so did Nebuchadnezzar marvel that the 3 Hebrew boys, when they were put in the fiery furnace, not only did they not burn, but they were not destroyed. They were not overcome. They walked out. And so to strive is not meant to be immediate. I'm going to say this again. To strive is not meant to be immediate, but it is meant to push one to master the art of struggle and failure. I'm going to say this again. To strive is not meant to be immediate. Okay? It's meant to push you to master the art of struggle and failure. Think about something that you finally overcame. It didn't just come right away. You had a lot of failure, a lot of struggle. You had to scrap. That's what striving does. That's what perseverance does. That's what endurance does. It's meant to push you to master the art of struggle and failure until it pushes you to fight, to learn to fight, and to grow. Sanctification in itself is a long process that continues until our Messiah comes back to redeem us. Sanctification is not something, I was when I was 12 and then I'm done. No. That's what people think. I got baptized when I was 12, so I'm saved and I don't have to do nothing else. No. Sanctification is a lifelong process that continues until our Messiah comes back to redeem us. Do you understand this? And so the reason why many are not on fire for Yah is because their fire has been snuffed out by the things that they carry or have attached themselves to. What they carry or what they're carrying around or what they have attached to them won't allow them to grow from children to being a mature son or daughter of the Most High Yah. And just like we said last week, the bride is to make herself ready. And throughout this period, because we're in the betrothal period right now, the wedding has not taken place yet. You have to go through the fire. You have to prove. Okay? The bride during this time is to make herself ready, and throughout the time, she is supposed to keep herself pure for the man that she has never seen, but loved so deeply that even though she hasn't seen him, she's striving to get to him. She's fighting. She's scrapping. She's striving to get through that narrow door. She's willing to get down naked and strip everything off, take off everything, get rid of everything, shred and strip herself naked to get to him. Because she sees him on that other side of that door. And as we talked in our lesson last week, while the bride is getting or making herself ready, the bridegroom has gone to prepare a place for her. He knows that she's getting herself ready, so he has gone to prepare the wedding chamber, whose location, like we learned last week, is at his Father's house, New Jerusalem, that's coming down from heaven. Again, the door to salvation is so narrow that if we even think to carry in the things that he has commanded that we put away from us, if we are unwilling to kill the flesh and are unwilling to put to death the things that are of the flesh, the things in our life that hinders us from coming into full fellowship with him, we will find that on that day we will not be able to fit. So let's read the rest of this chapter. Luke 12. Go to Luke 12. We're going to read verses 23 through 30. Luke 12, 23 through 30. And a man asked him, Master, are the ones being saved few? But Yeshua said to them, strive to enter in through the narrow gate, for I say to you that many will seek to enter in and will not have the strength. You're not going to have the strength because you're going to get tired of trying to fit through a door that you can't fit. You're going to be a circle trying to fit yourself in a rectangle door. He says, from the hour that the master of the house rises and secures the door, then they will stand outside and knock on the door and begin to say, our master, open up to us. And he will answer and will say, I say to you that I do not know you. From where are you coming from? Then you will begin to say, well, remember us? We ate and we drank in your presence. Remember when we taught in your streets? And then it says the Messiah is going to say, look, I tell you, I don't know you. From where are you from? I don't know you. He says, depart from me, all workers of falsehood. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and all the prophets in the kingdom of Yah, but you on the outside. Where are you going to be when we keep going back to the tabernacle of Yah? Are you going to be in the outer courts? Weeping and gnashing teeth, putting dirt on your head? He says they will come from the east and from the west and from the north and from the south and will recline in the kingdom of Yah, and behold, there are last ones who will be first, and there are those who are first who will be last. So remember, let's go. We got to go back because this is not over, and I feel like it's going to continue. He keeps expanding on this. Let's go back to our lesson from the tabernacle of Yah, because I see that Yah is going to have me go back. It just seems like he's going to have me go back over this again and again. I can see this just not going to end. So don't be surprised if the next lesson still has to do with an expansion of the Tabernacle of Yah lesson. And obviously he wants us to get this. He doesn't want us to miss the mark. Because although if you are a guest, he desires for you to be the bride. Do you want to be a guest or do you want to be a bride? Or do you just want to be on the outer court and be in the lease? Okay? We talked about this in last week's lesson in the wedding planner, where we were able to link the Tabernacle of Yah to the bride being those that are in the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, and the guests and the Gentiles being in the holy place, and then the others being the least in the outer court, and maybe worse. Outer court could mean hell. But I know I don't want to be in that. That's nothing I'm striving for. And so the place of sacrifice and the place where the brazen laver or the altar was in the outer court, This is from our Tabernacle of Yah lesson. The place of sacrifice and the place where the brazen laver or the altar was, this was located in the outer court, and we know that the sacrifice in itself is a representation of the true sacrifice, which is our Messiah Yeshua. And the brazen laver is a type or a foreshadow of baptism or being immersed, having died to your old self and being born again into a new creation, being renewed. Okay? And so, but it's not our Father's desire that we continue to lay a foundation of having to be washed and cleansed again from the same old sins over and over and over again. You still being cleansed. That's not his desire, that you're still being cleansed for the same sins over and over. At this point, we should be moving to maturity. How many times does Yah have to keep saying the same things to you over and over? And when I say the same things, no, he's not coming down from the throne room talking to us. But if he continues to keep sending someone to you, delivering the same message over and over, how many times is it going to take before you actually move on it? His desire is that we move from the place, meaning the outer court of cleansing rituals. But many of you have remained at that point or at the point in salvation, and you're comfortable remaining at the point and have absolutely no desire to move beyond the outer court of being cleansed or just saved. Many of you don't want to move on to a deeper relationship with the Father. You have no desire to see what's further in the Tabernacle or Yah. You don't want to get into that intimate place, that secret place. And why? For many of you, you have to be honest with yourself. You know that it's going to cost you something. You don't want to go deeper in the Word and do the work because it means a great sacrifice, and it also means shedding yourself, letting go of the things that you desire and the things that you love in your heart more than Yah, which is idolatry. You've become comfortable. For many of you have become comfortable with just being saved, with just being a believer. You have no desire to be a disciple, let alone be a forerunner. Many of you would rather continue in the mundane, Yah knows my heart, foolishness, when he has already revealed his truth to you. Many times he sent his messages to you over and over again to warn you before his judgment falls on you. And like I said earlier, if you want to become a bride of the Messiah, okay, he requires a commitment and a desire to be intimate with him. He requires you to desire to go beyond just being a believer. To become the bride of the Messiah, it is going to require everything. And I mean everything. Just like getting through that narrow door will require everything. It's going to require you to shed everything to get through that door. If you don't get completely naked, you're not going to make it. It requires for us to come into the full knowledge of who our Messiah is. Okay? Many of you may not even know that the messenger of Yah was the Messiah. When we understand and come into the full knowledge of who he is, and that is part of my job as a teacher, as he continues to reveal to me, I continue to reveal. We have to do the work until the entire body comes into the full knowledge of who he is in unity. This is what the whole point of doing the work is. It requires for us to come to the full knowledge of who Yeshua, our Messiah, is, because he's not coming back for an immature bride. He's not coming back for an immature bride. He's not coming back for a baby, but he's coming back for a spiritually mature, grown bride, grown woman. But many of you are going to say, well, who can get through that door? It's too hard. No one's perfect. This is what we hear people say all the time. And they only say these things because they measure perfection by what society has told them. Okay, this is what perfection looks like. Okay, but scripturally, perfection is righteousness and living an upright life like Abraham and like Job. That's why Yah said, be ye perfect, for your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, why would he require for us to be something that he knows that we can't be? That wouldn't make any sense. So somewhere that means that we don't understand what it means to be perfect. Perfect does not mean without sin. He knows that there's no man that can say they are without sin. Otherwise, what would be the purpose of his sacrifice of his son, right? Perfection means righteousness. It means living an upright life. It means living a set-apart life. People no longer, from what I see, they no longer see the need to strive for perfection. I rarely see people who are striving. When I say strive, what did we learn about strive earlier? We talked about fighting. It's like you were fighting for something. You're fighting. You're scrapping. You're struggling. You're contesting. I rarely see people striving for perfection with agony, with a sense of urgency, because for many of you, you've allowed the false church system to warp your thinking. And that's why you're not seeking the Father for yourself. Instead of teaching about suffering and speaking about living, we hear people talking about, I'm living my best life. Instead of teaching the brethren how to live a life of perfection, the church is teaching that nobody can be perfect, and God is a loving God, and he's a forgiving God, and of course, because of his grace, Yah knows your heart, right? That's what we hear. This is a problem that I have with the Christian church and this type of thinking. When we think about the Tabernacle Yah lesson, in order for us to understand what righteousness means, we need to understand what being righteous comes with. Many of us want to be a priest. Many of us want to be a pastor. We want to be a teacher. We want to be a leader, But we're lacking a relationship that comes from that relationship that you should have with the Father, okay? Many fail to realize when you go into the scriptures, many fail to realize that the priests serve the people. The priests serve the people, but their first function was to serve Yah first. I repeat, you cannot have a leadership position and lead others to Yah, and you yourself are not serving Yah first. We talked about this last week when we read Romans chapter 2, when we talked about how you can blaspheme his name and not bear his image. You've ever heard someone say, you giving me a bad name? What do you think that means? You're making me look bad. His bearing the Father's name, as we learned last week, it talks about his character. His name is his character, his nature, and every attribute that represents who he is. And this is what Moses asked last week when we did the lesson. Moses asked, I want to see all your glory. And he said, I'm going to show you my glory, but I'm also going to call out my own name. And he started calling out different attributes that represents who his name is. Everybody is so caught up in how to correctly pronounce it, they missed that part. We talked about how Moses asked to see the glory of Yah. We talked about this, and it linked right back to the fruits of the Spirit, where he started calling out the nature of his character. And so again, being cleansed at the brazen altar is only the beginning. Okay, this is the beginning, the entrance of the outer court. And so I want to briefly explain it again. The first section of the tabernacle has to do with salvation and justification. And if we remain at this point, where you just right at the beginning of the door, this is where you're going to remain. You're going to remain weak, okay? You will be unable to eat the meat of this walk, and you will always lack the spiritual maturity that you need to grow into the level of perfection that is required to be a bride. There is a level of perfection that is required to become a bride. You can't become a bride and you still a baby. You can't become a bride. Do you see a baby with a bottle standing at the altar with a grown man? No, you don't. So there is a level of perfection that is required to become a bride. Okay? We, Israel, we have been called to be a peculiar people. We are a peculiar people, a chosen people, a holy or set apart priesthood. Okay? There's no doubt about that. But for many of you, instead of being on fire, you have become fireproof. You fail to burn for our King. And if you remain in this place, you will be the least in the kingdom. You will be the least. Go to Revelations 19:7. Revelations 19:7 says, let us rejoice and let us exalt, and we will give glory to him, because the marriage of the Lamb came, and his wife prepared herself. Ezra 7:10 said, Ezra prepared himself to seek the Torah of Yah. He didn't just go start teaching. He prepared himself. When David prayed to the Father, and we learned this last week, he said, before I can teach transgressors your ways, I need to first confess my sin, repent. I need to get my life right. I need to get myself together from this sin that I've just committed. Please don't take your set-apart spirit from me. Purge me with hyssop, clean, make me white, clean me, make me whiter than snow. Let me repent and turn away from this and prepare my heart, get myself ready, and then after I get myself together, then I can go and teach. So again, Revelations 19:7 says, let us rejoice, let us exalt, and we will give glory to him, because the marriage of the Lamb came and his wife prepared herself. And so you can best believe that the bride prepared herself through struggle. You don't become a bride and you haven't contested anything. You haven't struggled. You haven't been proven. You haven't been tested. You haven't been put through the fire. Those who were beheaded were those who were put through the fire. And they were given a great reward. And so again, you can best believe that the bride prepared herself through struggle and through suffering, because our Messiah said that we must do what? Suffer much tribulation to enter into the kingdom. This is what he said. He also said, in this world, all those who desire to live a Yahweh life, he says, in this world, you will have tribulation. He said, you will have tribulation. If you desire to live a Yahweh life, in order to live a Yahweh life, you are going to have to strive. I just went through this with my son, with his school. They had some festival, some concert Friday evening, and his teacher was really peed off, I'll say that, at me because I wouldn't let him participate. Because he's only one of 3 bass players, and they were having a competition in the middle school against the high school. And she's like, well, everyone was depending on him, and everyone looks up to him. She's trying to, like, make my son feel bad. And I told him, look here. Yah comes first. Nothing supersedes Yah. The world will try to make you feel bad because you are keeping we're keeping the feast of Yah. We're keeping the Sabbath. We're not keeping a worldly festival. That's something that's going on a Friday evening. And I kindly sent her an email and told her that he will not be participating. She called me. I can tell she was getting ready to get rah-rah. I had to quickly put her in her place in a nice way and let her know I apologize that I did not read the letter that she said she sent 3 weeks ago. I said, but moving forward, do not expect him to participate in any events that occur on a Friday evening. As a matter of fact, on a Friday period. Because once he gets out of school, we're preparing for the Sabbath. We're preparing to get our minds fixed on Yah, and we're preparing for our foods. I don't have time to be running around for things that have to do with a pagan festival or just a regular, whatever it was, just a regular festival. That wasn't my concern. I'd rather obey Yah than man. So that's of course you're gonna, in order to be able to maintain, and he says those who desire to live a Yahly life, you're gonna have tribulation. You're gonna have to go through because we are gonna be tested. Your job gonna be at you talking about something that's mandatory that you got to go to on the Sabbath. I don't care what any job tell me is what is mandatory. I don't care what it is. I'm not going, period. My trust, we are at the point, and Prina and I had this conversation about a month ago, we're at the point where we have to begin to trust Yah. If we walk in the fear of men because they're telling you you're going to lose your job. Okay, just like the Hebrew boys said, okay, if it's your will for me to lose this job, you will deliver me and open up another door. No man can close a door that he can open, and no one can open a door that he closes. But if it's not, then so be it, and I got to trust you if I got to go through. But we have to get to the point where we're not so quick to operate in fear or be willing to break his Sabbath or be willing to break his commandment, because man is going to put that fire on you. Nebuchadnezzar put the fire on the 3 Hebrew boys. They decided to burn and was willing to burn over bowing down. They could have said, oh, well, yeah, you know my heart. They getting ready to put us in this fire. But when they was put in the furnace of affliction, it was not his will that they burned. And what did he do? They were the thorns. Okay? They were the thorns. Modified branches. I am the vine, you are the branch. The vine has the vascular tissue that supplies water and nutrients, and because he was able to control the temperature of high heat, they didn't burn. That's what we got to be. We getting ready to have some supernatural things that are getting ready to occur, and that's what we're going to be. We have to be willing to, but what did he say? All those who desire to live a Yahly life in this world, you will have tribulation. So if the Messiah and his word has said that we're going to have tribulation, then I don't care what your pastor has told you. You better pay attention to what the Father and the Son has told you, because they said you will. And so we must get our minds prepared for struggling. We must get our minds prepared for struggling, because it's not only coming, but it is an absolute requirement to enter into the kingdom. We must offer up our will for his will and our desires for his desires. Go to Romans 12. We're going to read 1 and 2. Romans 12, 1 and 2 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercy of Yah, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to Yah, which is your reasonable service. Some of your scriptures might say spiritual worship, but this is the least that you can do. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to discern what is good, pleasing, and the perfect will of Yah. He's saying, look, get your mind right. You need to get your mind right now. If you are not willing to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, you ain't going to make it. That's why many of you can't discern what is good, what is pleasing, and what is the perfect will of Yah. Again, remember in the Tabernacle of Yah lesson, we talked about the progressive state of moving from the good to the acceptable to the then pleasing will of Yah. Again, Yah desires for us to move from the good, which is the initial cleansing when you enter at the beginning of the outer court, to the good, which is moving to the pruning process. The good is moving to the pruning process, the purification process. Okay, this is where you're in the holy place. Till finally, you're in the Holy of Holies, okay, where you have sacrificed everything. You have been beheaded. You was willing to be in the fire. You have been tested, tried, proven. You are a thorn that has overcome. You have spiritually matured in perfection, and thus you are ready to enter into that secret place of Yah, which is the very presence of Yah, a set-apart presence that He ultimately requires from all of us. But whether you get into that place will solely depend on you and if you desire it. Because unfortunately, many of you do not want to pursue who you call the lover of your soul. Many of you do not want to do the work. You don't want to study to show yourself approved. You don't want to sacrifice everything that it is going to take to be in His presence because you are content with being in a lesser part of the tabernacle. Therefore, you sit and you do nothing. And so as it pertains to struggling and affliction, I want to briefly go over something that Yah revealed to me this morning. As a matter of fact, it's the reason why I had to push the teaching back an extra half an hour, because this was revealed just before. Go to Exodus 19. Go to Exodus 19. We're going to begin reading at verse 3. Exodus 19 and 3. It says, and Moses went up to Yah, and Yah called to him from the mountain, saying, you shall say this to the house of Jacob, and tell it to the sons of Israel. You have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. And now, if listening, you will listen to my voice, and will keep my covenant. You shall become a special treasure to me above all nations, for all the earth is mine. And you shall become a kingdom of priests for me, a set-apart nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the sons of Israel. And Moses came and called the elders of the people, and he put all their words before them which Yah commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all which Yah has spoken we will do. And Moses brought back the words of the people to Yah. And Yah said to Moses, behold, I come to you in a darkness of clouds, so that the people may hear my speaking with you, and in you they may believe forever. And Moses told the words of the people to Yah. And Yah said to Moses, go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes. So they have agreed, okay? They have agreed to enter into a covenant marriage with the Father. So he's like, now let this sanctification begin. They need to cleanse themselves. So we see they want to move from the outer court, okay? And so look what it says. You want to be my bride? Go and cleanse yourself, okay? And then look at verse 11. It says, be ready for the third day. So he's telling the bride, be ready for the third day. He says, for on the third day, highlight third. Third is in twice in verse 11. Be ready for the third day. For on the third day, there's third again. Yah will go down before the eyes of all the people on the mountain of Sinai. And you shall set limits to the people all around, saying, be careful for yourselves, not going up into the mountain and touching this border. Everyone touching the mountain surely shall die. Remember, you cannot come into the presence. The presence of Yah is the holy of holies. He says, not a hand shall touch him, but stoning he shall be stoned, or piercing he shall be shot through. He shall not live, whether animal or man. At the long sounding of the horn, they shall go up into the mountain. And Moses went from the mountain to the people, and he sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day. There's a third day again. Do not approach a woman, so do not have intercourse with a woman. Look at verse 16. We see third day again. And on the third day, it being morning, it happened. There were thunders and lightnings and a heavy cloud on the mountain, and the sound of a ram's horn, very strong. And all the people in the camp trembled. And Moses caused the people to go up from the camp to meet Yah, and they took their stand at the lower part of the mountain. Now, I'm going to just stop right here, because I wanted to show you how we see third, 3, 3, 3, 3, over and over in here. Okay? 3 is a significant number. In the Bible, typically 3 represents complete or completion, perfection, wholeness. It also represents life, deliverance, and resurrection. I'm going to say it again. Typically in the Bible, we find that 3 represents completion, perfection, wholeness, but it also represents life, deliverance, and resurrection. As we know that our Messiah was raised from the dead on what day? On the third day. Yeshua prayed when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane. He prayed 3 times, it says, in the Garden of Gethsemane before he was arrested. It says that he was placed on the, when you read it, that he was placed, and I'm not going to the scriptures, I'm just telling you, he was placed on the tree, because he didn't die on a cross, it was a tree or a stake. He was placed on the tree at the 3rd hour of the day. The 3rd hour of the day is 9 a.m. So at the 3rd hour, the scriptures tell you that there's again is 3. And then he died at the 9th hour. The 9th hour is 3 p.m. Okay? There were 3 hours, the scripture says, 3 hours of darkness that covered the land while Yeshua was suffering on the tree. It says from when you read in the scriptures, it says from the 6th to the 9th hour that he suffered for 3 hours. Okay? In Revelations 8 and 13, it says that an angel was charged to cry 3 woes, okay, to those who live on the earth, to warn them of more trials that were to come. Remember, the 2 witnesses, they will not be allowed to be buried when they're killed. Remember, they're going to lie openly in Jerusalem for how many days? 3 days before they are resurrected again. And so having said that, and going back to the tabernacle of Yah teaching, I keep telling you, we're not done. There are 3 components in the tabernacle of Yah. Remember, we have the outer court, which represents the furthest away that you can be from Yah. Then you have the holy place, which is where you will go deeper. Okay? This is where the fire and the purging and the purification and the pruning will happen, okay? And then, of course, and this is where our Messiah would be as well, okay? And then, of course, the Holy of Holies, which is where the very presence of Yah resides. And so I want to go into the revelation again that he gave me. How many of you knew, or did you know, that as the tabernacle of Yah had 3 components, outer court, the holy place, and the Holy of Holies, okay? How many of you knew that as the tabernacle of Yah had 3 components, okay? Dealing with 3 again. And as we have learned about the significance of 3, which is life, resurrection, and deliverance, did you know that the Bible also speaks of 3 different heavens? In Genesis chapter 1, it tells you that Yah created the heavens, S, plural. The first heaven is the atmosphere around the earth. The second heaven is commonly referred to as what we say the outer space, okay, outer space. This is the second heaven. When you read Exodus 32 and 13, it refers to this as the area that has the stars. We know that this has to be the second heaven because stars do not rain. When it rains, we don't see stars that are in the sky, okay, when the rain is falling, but this is much further beyond our atmosphere. We normally can look up, we see birds flying in the first heavens, okay? We see birds and, different kind of birds and animals and stuff flying in the atmosphere. We might be able to look up and see clouds. When we're taking planes, we're in that first ever atmosphere. If you're taking a trip and you get on a plane, you're in that first heaven, okay? But when you get into that second heaven, now you're getting into what we call outer space. This is where the stars are, and where we read what we call outer space. This is where Nehemiah, when you read Nehemiah chapter 9 and 6, it refers to this space as heaven, where it says, you alone are Yah, you have made heaven, the heaven of heavens, which are all their hosts. So he's talking about the sun and moon and stars. When we take a plane, and I've been on planes a million times, nowhere did I look out the window and I'm looking at the moon and the stars, okay? And so that's not where we are. We are not up in outer space. And then the third heaven, which is mentioned, go quickly to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. This is mentioned. Paul mentions this third heaven as paradise. And let's go here quickly. 2 Corinthians 12, 1 through 4. Paul says, I really to boast, it is not profitable to me. He says, for I will come to visions and revelations of our Master Yeshua. He said, I know a man in the Messiah 14 years before, whether in the body, he said, I do not know, or if he was out of the body, he said, I do not know. He said, but Yah knows. He said, such a one was caught up in the third heaven. He says, and I know such a man, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know, but Yah knows. I think I'm going to repeat this twice. He said, but he was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words which a man is not permitted to speak. Now, clearly, Paul is telling us here in verse 1 that this is a vision, okay, because no man has been up there. This is a vision he's saying that he's having, and he says that because the third heaven is where Yah dwells, so he's having a vision. When you look in John chapter 3, we also find a similar situation happen to the Apostle John. When the book of Revelations, John was the last apostle, and in the book of Revelations, John saw visions, and he was able to see in the future. He was actually able to see the new kingdom that was coming down. He was able to give you the description of our Messiah, of what he saw. Okay, so these were visions. He wasn't actually there, but these were visions that he was given. So this is what Paul is describing in 2 Corinthians 12, 1 through 4. He's describing the vision of the third heaven where the very throne of Yah is. And when you read Revelations 4 and 2, it reveals that Yah's throne is in heaven, but again, which one? Obviously, his throne is not in the sky where the clouds are and the birds are flying. Okay, that's the first heaven. Nor is it in the confines of what we call outer space. That's the second heavens. But when we reference what has been written, the scriptures that we just got finished reading, and especially in 2 Corinthians 12, we can discern that the third heaven can very well be the very location of Yah. And so, again, it does mention the third heaven. I've heard some people saying there's 7 heavens. There's no scriptures that talk about that. Okay? But, again, this is according to Paul's vision. I'm going according to Scripture, and also according to the constructs in which Yah commanded. And I'll tell you, go to Hebrews 8 and 5, because according to not only what Paul's vision of what he saw, but also according to the constructs in which Yah commanded Moses to build his tabernacle. Remember, he said that his tabernacle would be a pattern of the heavens. And so when we read, if you look at Hebrews 8 and 5, it says, they serve a copy and a shadow of what is in heaven. See, are you looking at this? The tabernacle of Yah that Yah had Moses construct was a copy or a replica and a shadow of what is already in heaven. It tells you, looking at it, Hebrews 8 and 5. This is why Moses was warned when he was about to build a tabernacle. It says, see to it that you make everything according to the pattern that was shown to you on the mountain. So Yah was very specific on how this tabernacle had to be built. Why? Because it was a replica or a copy of what is already in heaven. Now, another version said they serve in a system of worship that is only a copy or a shadow of the real one in heaven. I love the way this reads. This is a copy. This is a system of worship that is a copy or a shadow of the real one in heaven. For when Moses was getting ready to build the tabernacle, Yah gave him this warning: make sure that you make everything according to the pattern that I shown you. So he was very specific on how it had to be built. And so clearly, as the tabernacle of Yah that Moses built, so too is there a distinct difference between the heavens, which is the lower heaven, the atmosphere that we see when we look out up into the skies, the birds where they're flying, where the planes go, and then we have the middle, which is outer space, and then we have the supreme heaven, which is where he is, the third heaven. And so I want something else that was brought. Go to Daniel chapter 10. This was something else. We're still continuing with 3. I never really paid attention to this much significance with 3. When you read Daniel chapter 10, verse 1 through 3, did you know that 3 was also the time of deliverance? Because remember, I said 3 can mean resurrection. It can also can mean deliverance as well. And so did you know that 3 also had to do with what we see going in Daniel 10? Look at Daniel 10. It says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar. And the thing was true, and a great conflict. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, he said, I was mourning 3 weeks of days. I ate no food for delight, no flesh, meaning I didn't eat any meat, or no wine came into my mouth. I did not anoint myself at all until 3 weeks of days were fulfilled. So what we're reading here in Daniel chapter 10, Daniel is setting aside 3 weeks for a special prayer. And it says during these 3 weeks that Daniel said that he did a fast. And what this fast consists of, he didn't give up all of his food. Okay, he did eat during his 3 weeks, but it says that he only ate the simplest of food. So that means he didn't drink no wine, he didn't eat no meat. And so most likely this is probably fruits and vegetables, okay, that he was most likely just eating. It says that he was mourning before Yah on behalf of his people Israel. Now, he's mourning because he's given a vision that Israel are going to soon be captives of a Gentile empire. And so at the end of his 3-week fast that he did, of no alcohol, no eating no meat, just eating, it seems like fruits and vegetables is from what I'm seeing here. It says at the end of his 3 weeks, because remember, he fasted for 3 weeks. Okay, you see that? For 3 weeks, he set aside a special prayer for 3 weeks, and for 3 weeks he fasted. So he was fasting and praying for 3 weeks, and he was in mourning this entire time because of the vision that he saw of his people Israel going into captivity to the Gentiles. And so at the end of this 3 weeks, it says that an angel came to him with the answer to his prayer, which was a revelation from Yah as to what would be the future of his people. Now, this is what the angel said. We're going to go down to verse 12 and 13. Read Daniel, look at Daniel 10, and we're going to go down to verse 12. And he said to me, so he says, this angel said to me, do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand, look at this again. For if he told him, don't fear, he says, from the first day that you set your heart, prepared your heart. To set means to prepare your heart, to understand. And not only to understand, he says, but to humble yourself before Yah. He said, from the day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before Yah, he says, your words were heard. He said, your prayers were answered. He said, I have come because of your words, because of your prayers, because you humbled yourself, because you sat and prepared your heart to understand. When you fasted, when you prayed, he said, your words were heard. And he said, look, this is why I'm here. But look at verse 13. He says, but the king of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days. It's not 21 days, 3 weeks, 7 days in a week. 7 times 3 is what? 21. So Daniel's prayer, although they were answered, it took 3 weeks before his prayers were answered. Even though they were immediately answered in the spiritual, it didn't manifest into the physical until 3 weeks later. So sometimes we're praying and praying and praying, and he may have answered it, but it may be weeks before it gets. It said 3 weeks. He was fighting. He was fighting and striving. This angel was striving and fighting and struggling, trying to get to Daniel. He said, your prayer has been answered already. And so sometimes it is only through perseverance and persistent struggle, willful fighting. It is only through that we are victorious and we receive deliverance. Because it's easy to give up. Anyone can do that. Just quit. But it takes a certain mindset and a certain level of endurance to fight, a certain level of endurance to overcome. And so it's easy for people to be fed on YouTube. It's easy to sit and listen to someone else teach. It's easier to do these things than it is to search Yah out for yourself. It's easier to do these things and just click on a button and press play than it is to actually spend intimate time with the Father for yourself. And for many of you, the Torah has become an idol. And when I say this, I mean that reading and learning about the Torah has just become something that you religiously do. Something that you just go through the works. Okay, I keep the Sabbath every sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. I keep it. Some of you religiously do. But you don't allow the word to actually change you. You may listen to the word being read or may listen to the word being taught. You may fellowship and study the word with others, but it doesn't move you to discipleship. It doesn't compel you to be a forerunner. And that's because you don't allow the Torah to renew you. And it's also because many of you have failed to realize that being saved and keeping the commandments is not the end of this journey. Many people think that's it. Okay, I'm saved. I believe in him. I read, and that's just it. I keep the Sabbath, or I go to church on Sunday, and that's it. We think that this journey ends at just your salvation and you keeping the commandments. Many of you have not realized, or many of you have not realized that you can make the decision on where you want to be in this walk. Because ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Have you decided where you want to be in this walk, and have you taken those steps to do so? What do I mean by this? When I say you can decide where you want to be in this walk. You can decide if you want to remain a baby in this walk or if you want to grow and be mature. But again, it's up to you. You have to realize that in this walk, or this walk in and of itself, is about serving others. This walk is about serving others. But many of you only want to serve yourselves. I've heard people say, oh, well, I ain't worried about nobody else. You are your brother's keeper. That's why y'all said that if we fail to warn the wicked, their blood is going to be on our hands. And while many have learned the quote-unquote acts of Torah keeping and acts of keeping the Sabbath and acts of keeping the feast and fellowship with others, many of you have not learned to burn for the things of the kingdom. Do you know that in the tabernacle of Yah, that there was a golden altar of incense that was in the holy place, and it was just before the veil? This was placed right at the entrance of the Holy of Holies to be able to enter into the presence of Yah. And it says that this golden altar of incense continuously burned. It offered up a sweet smell to the Father twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And it says that this smell was a pleasing smell to the Father. And it was never to be put out. This was a fire that was supposed to continuously burn. Go to Ezekiel 37. Go to Ezekiel 37. Again, this walk is about serving others. And it's not about, okay, I can quote scripture, or I keep the Torah, or I keep the Sabbath, or I fellowship with others, but I fail to burn for the things of the kingdom. Many of you do not desire to take this good news of the Messiah to the ends of the earth. Who do you think is doing it to the four corners of the earth? We're the witnesses. How's it going to get there to people if we all decide and sit back and say, well, I don't want to do it? No man has seen or heard the Father and live. So who is he using? What do you think Paul was doing? What do you think all those people were getting crucified for and getting beheaded for? What do you think those people who were running because they didn't want them keeping the Sabbath and they was being jailed? What do you think these 3 Hebrew boys were doing? What do you think Joseph was doing? They were willing to sacrifice. Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son. Ezekiel 37, 9 and 10. Then he said to me, Yah said to Ezekiel, prophesy to the Spirit, prophesy, son of man, say to the Spirit, so says the Most High Yah, come from the 4 winds, O Spirit, and breathe on these slain ones. Breathe on these slain ones that they may live. And Ezekiel says, so I prophesied. To prophesy means to speak the inherited word of Yah. You are speaking his word. This is not about rubbing old genie and you get ready to have a Benz on your birthday and I see this in your future. He is not a psychic. The prophet, otherwise they would have loved the prophets. They were all crucified. They were all killed, stoned to death, martyrs, because they were telling people to repent. Put away your idols, is what they told them. Yeshua said, if you don't do it, I'm going to come and take your candlestick away from you. You have turned away from your first love. You don't burn for me anymore. So y'all told Ezekiel, prophesy to these slain ones so they can live. So Ezekiel obeyed. He said, so I prophesied as he commanded me. And he said, and then the Spirit came into them. What happened when Paul and them and Peter and they were preaching to the people in Acts 2? What we call Pentecost. They received the indwelling Spirit. They wanted to know, how can I be saved? He told them, look, put away your idolatries. Repent. Then when you get baptized in the name of Yeshua, then you can be saved. But something had to happen first. There's no repentance. There's no salvation, and you haven't repented first. Many of you have not repented. Ezekiel said, I prophesied as he commanded. This is what they were doing, what we call the Acts 2 church, in Acts chapter 2. They were prophesying to them. They spoke in different tongues, different languages to people from the Israelite strangers coming from all over the world, and they were able to minister unto them in their own language. The Spirit came into all of them. He says they lived and they stood up on their feet, a great army. So in these final days, Yah is raising up a great army. But who is he using to do this? If you're in the army, what do? You're in the army, you're fighting. You're on the front line. You're not in the army and you sit back there with your feet propped up, eating grapes and bonbons. You got your armor of Yah on. You ready for war. What do you think they doing this entire time before it's an actual war? They in preparation for what they know is inevitable. So that when the war starts, you're not trying to go put your armor on. You already got your armor on because you stay ready. When the trumpet sound, many of you are going to be sitting up just like the foolish virgin trying to look for your oil. Oh, what? If you'd have been ready and preparing, you would have already known you didn't have no oil in your lamp. That's why the door is going to be shut on some of you. Because you're going to be going to look for it and it's going to be too late. Like we just got finished reading. So again, in these final days, Yah is raising up a great army. But he is using those who are perfect. And again, perfect does not mean who haven't sinned. That means those who are complete, those who are righteous. Strong Hebrews for perfect, in Ezekiel 37, as it is being used, is Strong Hebrews 3634. It means complete. The source.com for complete means not lacking. It says faultless. Undivided. What do you think about when you see the word undivided? If I'm talking to somebody on the phone and they talking to 20 other people in the background, I'm not getting your undivided attention. Eventually, I'm getting ready to get off the phone. If I'm talking to my husband on the phone and he yelling about stuff about sports in the background, you're not giving me your undivided attention. If we're sitting here and we going out to dinner and you on your cell phone and I'm trying to talk to you and you on Facebook, you on Twitter, you're not giving me your undivided attention. You're not complete if your attention is not completely in Yah. If your attention is divided. It says to be complete, that means not lacking, faultless, undivided, and it says to carry out an action. To be complete means you carry out the action. What is it that he's told you to do? If you haven't done it, you have not carried out the action. That means you're divided. In Genesis 6 and 9, Noah is described as a just man and perfect in his generation. And so perfect, as used here in Genesis 6 and 9, is used to denote that Noah is a complete man. He was a man that was undivided in his heart. He lacked nothing, and he was willing to carry out the actions. But not just the actions, but the actions of Yah. And we know that David was a man after Yah's own heart. He was undivided in his heart. It tells you he was a man after Yah's own heart. That's how you want, if you're in love with someone. You want someone who's into you, someone whose heart is after your heart. Not someone whose attention is always somewhere else, is undivided. They're not interested in spending time with you. They're not interested in doing anything. They're not coming after you like a husband runs after his wife. And so in our Tabernacle of Yah teaching that we did about 3 weeks ago, we learned that the place of the third covenant was in the Holy of Holies. This was where the Ark of the Covenant was placed, and only the priests were allowed to enter into it. Okay, this was the place where Yah resided. He dwelled. But now Yeshua has torn down that wall. So we now have access to come to him, but we can only do this, again, Yeshua said, I am the door. We can only do this if we rid ourselves of our flesh and we put on the Messiah. What did the Messiah tell the man? He said, if you want to be perfect, if you want to be complete, you want to be undivided, not having your heart half the time with me and somewhere else, he said, then go and sell all that you have and follow me. Oh, but I got to go see about my father. That's why he said, let the dead bury the dead. There was delay in this man's heart. Give everything you got, give it to the poor and follow me. Says the man became very sorrow in his heart because he loved all his riches. That's why he said it's going to be hard for a rich man to get into heaven, because they're not going to be willing to sacrifice and give up everything. Yeshua was saying, if you want to be a true son, if you want to enter into that third covenant, I'm the door. You want to enter into that holy of holies? Give up everything and follow me. No man comes to the Father but through me, because I am the door. And so having said that, we have to choose. You have to choose to pass through the outer court in order to stand in the holy place. And then once complete in our Messiah, then we'll be allowed to move on to the third section of the tabernacle, which is the holies of holies. But self-denial is the only way. Having an undivided heart is the only way. Forsaking all so that you can fit through that narrow open door, because he got the door open, want you to come in. He's looking at you, but many of you stand at the door. Remember, the holy place was the door. Remember, in the tabernacle, that's the door of the decision. You got to make a decision. That's the only way. What do y'all say? When you seek him, you will find him. But only when you diligently search for him with all your heart, all your soul and mind. And that's the key word. All our heart. Not a divided heart. He didn't say you're going to find me when you seek me with a divided heart. He says, but with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. That means with everything you got. Because if you're trying to seek him when your heart is in two different places, this makes you double-minded. Your heart is your mind. So if your heart is divided, so is your mind. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his or her ways. They're unstable. Yah will refine those whom he truly loves, and only those who love him are diligently seeking him. And those who are diligently seeking him will find him. Remember, I said this last week. The kingdom of Yah is righteousness, peace, and joy. The kingdom of Yah is for those who are pure in heart, those who are mourning over their sins, just like Daniel did, and he decided to do this 3-week fast and prayer. The kingdom of Yah are for those seeking him at all costs, willing to sell all that they have, willing to forsake father, mother, sister, brother, and children for him. But this is not what you hear in most Christian churches. They don't tell you that this walk is going to cost you everything you love, and most likely everything you love and hold dearly, he hates. They don't preach denial of self. They say live your best life. And that's why most will be surprised on the day of judgment when they got to stand before him and he get denied. When he tells them, depart from me. Because they never heard repent. They've never been told to embrace suffering. Because it's going to take sacrifice. Abraham was willing to put his son. He was willing to sacrifice his son. He had a ram waiting in the bush. But the point is, he was willing to shed whatever it was going to take to get through that door. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to be a great struggle and tribulation, he said, will come if you desire to live a Yahweh life. And so it's time for our people to wake up and put on our Messiah. Go to Romans 13 quickly. Romans 13 and 11 says, also knowing this, that now is the time and the hour for you to awake from your sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than we first believed. The night is far gone and the day has drawn near. Then let us cast off the works of darkness. Let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk becomingly as in the day, not in all carousing and drunkenness, not in cohabitation and lustful acts, not in fighting and envy, but clothe yourself with the Master Yeshua Messiah, and do not make forethought for the flesh, for its lust. So don't make provisions for the flesh. Don't put yourself in situations where you know it's going to cause you to sin against the Father. Whatever it is that is hindering you from growing in your walk with Yah, what did Yeshua say? If it's lust, whatever it is, if it's your eye, pluck it out. It's better for you to go into heaven in the kingdom with one eye than have both. If it's your leg, your foot, whatever it is, it's better for you to go in with one. It's just symbolic of meaning whatever it is that's hindering you. If you can't let it go and shred yourself, you're not getting through the door. Yeshua is the door. Only those who have been tested and tried by fire and overcome will be called sons and daughters. I don't know how many ways I can say this. Only those who have matured and are being led by the Spirit of Yah will receive the great reward of being a son or a daughter in the kingdom. And I want to say this. Maturity is not measured by how much head knowledge you have or how much you have read or how much you know. Because while there are many in Israel who are flexing their head knowledge, they boasting in who they are, they lack the spirit. They lack the spirit. They're so busy boasting about themselves and boasting, we Israel, boasting who we are. They have forgotten to boast about Father and teach who He is and how they live out their lives before men. That's how you boast to the Father. How you live your life. You are teaching through how you live your life. And so that's why the enemy is not scared of them. They're walking around, got their heads covered, got their mitre on, got their so-called Hebrew outfit, got their tassels, got their beards, speaking Hebrew. The enemy is not scared of them. They boasting around here about who they are. And then the enemy know you lack His spirit. You got head knowledge. They know the scriptures backwards and forth, but they lack the set apart spirit. So their witness is ineffective. And again, it's the reason why the enemy is not afraid of those walking around boasting in head knowledge, because he knows the truth. The enemy knows the truth. But when you can use what you know and can go into the battle place, into prayer, when Satan knows that you are an obedient servant, one that studies to show yourself approved, one that obeys the commands of Yah, and Satan knows that you are dependent on the Ruach and you're being led by the Ruach, you are one who stands, you don't waver, when they know if your heart is divided or not. That's how he's able to come at you with your weaknesses, because they're sitting up there watching you. When they know that your heart is undivided, when they know that you stand, that you are led by the Spirit, and that you're an obedient servant, now that's when you become dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Listen to our forefather David. Listen to his prayers. I absolutely love David's prayers. I read them all the time. I try to model my prayers after his. Listen to how our forefather David prayed. Listen to how the prophets prayed. Our forefathers Abraham and Isaac, Jacob. Listen how they all prayed. They prayed the house down. And I'll say this. Some of you might get mad when I say this. Some of you might be angry. But the reason why some of you refuse to fast, or the reason why many of you can't pray for longer than 5 minutes, or the reason why you can't study for more than a half an hour, or you can't worship or study longer than 30 minutes, you're like, oh, it's been, 2 hours. I can't sit, because I know our teachings are long. You can sit up and watch Titanic, that 3-4 hour movie. You can go up and watch the Bobby Brown special, New Edition special. You can watch all of that, Housewives, all the stuff that you need to not watch. But then if you're getting something that's feeding your spirit 2-3 hours, you can't do that. The reason why many of you can't do it is because your flesh is weak. That's the reason why you can't do it. And the reason why you're struggling is either for one or all of these 3 reasons that I'm getting ready to name. Either one, you're not filled with the set-apart spirit like you think you are. Number 2, you either had the set-apart spirit or the Holy Spirit, but you have either quenched it or it has left due to your disobedience or idolatry. Or number 3, you have no spiritual desire to mature or grow in the knowledge of Yeshua, who is the Word, who is the salvation of Yah, because of laziness. It's one of those reasons, one of those 3 reasons, or fear. And so, where do you think you fall? Be honest with yourself. Where do you fall? Think about it. Why have you stopped doing the work of our Father? Ask yourself, why is it that I don't do the work of the Father? And for those of you who say, well, I am doing the work of the Father. Okay. The works of the Father do not equate to Torah knowledge, how much knowledge you know, how much you got up in your head. Keeping the feast and honoring the Father on the Sabbath It's not the works of the Father. So what are the works of the Father? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm getting ready to be reading some of these quickly. Just write them down. Acts 10. If you can go quickly, then go ahead. Acts 10, 37 through 38 says, you yourselves know what has happened through Judea, beginning in Galilee with the baptism that John proclaimed, how Yah anointed Yeshua of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, and how Yeshua went around doing good, healing all who were oppressed by the devil because Yah was with him. So here we see healing. He was doing the works. He was going around proclaiming the word and healing those who were oppressed. Matthew 11, verses 4 through 5 says, Yeshua replied, go back and report to John what you hear and see. I'm going to say it again. Yeshua said, go back and report to John what you hear and what you see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Works of the Father. Isaiah 61, 1 and 2. The Spirit of Yah is on me, because Yah has anointed me to do what? Isaiah says, to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and release from darkness to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of Yah's favor and the day of our Master Yeshua's vengeance, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to give them a crown of beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and a garment of praise in a place of a spirit of despair. So they will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of Yah, that he may be glorified. So what are they doing? Preaching the good news to the poor. He has sent me to what? Bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty. That means freedom to those who are held captive by Satan to do his will. To proclaim the year of Yah's favor. This is it now. We are in the dispensation of grace. You have his grace. This is not time for you to sit back and chill, okay? People are on their way to hell. To comfort all who mourn. To provide for those who grieve in Zion. To give them a crown of beauty for ashes. This is how he is glorified. Mark 16 and 17 says, and these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. This is a sign. Now, everyone does not have the gift of speaking in tongues. And this is clear. I hate when people use this and say that this is the only sign. No, there are many signs. This is just one. Okay? This is just one. People think that tongues is a greater gift. No, to be able to prophesy, to speak the inspired word of Yah is a greater gift. And if you're teaching, that is a high calling, because you will be held with stricter judgment. Luke 4 and 18 says, the Spirit of Yah is on me, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, and to set the oppressed free. Our people are blind because they can't see, they can't hear, they are oppressed, and they do not know. So, brethren, those of you who are listening to this teaching, these are the works of the Father. They're actually going out and they're doing something. Our people were killed for going out preaching the good news. They were put in jail. They were stoned to death. They were beheaded. They were put in fire. They made sacrifices. They were willing to die. But the main thing that stood out when we talked about complete, it means to actually complete the action. There was an action that was followed. The Messiah promised something to those who love him. Go to John 14 and 12. John 14:12 says, truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do, because I am going to the Father. So he says, truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes in me, what did he say? If you say you believe in me, then you're going to also do the works that I did. What was he doing? We just got finished reading all the stuff that was the works of the Father. He says, if you believe in me, then you're going to do what I did. He wasn't sitting back eating bonbons with his feet up on the stone. They was looking for him. Where is he at? He said, I'm doing about my Father's business. If you say you believe in him, we are supposed to do the same works that he did. And not only that, he says greater works. We're supposed to be doing greater works that he did. He says, because I am going to the Father. We have been commissioned. He told the disciples, go and make disciples. Go out. Go out into the highways, to the hedges. Go grab as many people as you can get. Another verse says, truly, I tell all of you empathically, I can't get this word. He says, the one who believes in me will also do what I am doing. That I love the way that reads. The one who believes in me will also do what I'm doing. He will do even greater things than these because I'm going to the Father. And so do you realize that there are people who have never been filled with the Ruach, never been filled with His Holy Spirit, even though they believe that they have been? Don't be fooled by regular churchgoers either. Those who walking around toting the Bible, those who got their Hebrew beard and they got their tassels, they got their hair wrapped up, they go around quoting scriptures, they go to church every Sunday or every Sabbath. They look the part, they dress the part, they look holy. They give the outward appearance that they are, quote unquote, holy or set apart. Don't be fooled by that. Because if you're one of those who go to church or assemble and gather and listen to teachers week after week after week after week, year after year after year after year, yet there's no change, this is a problem. This is a problem. Because the Ruach, when the Ruach comes into you, the Ruach changes you. And it takes more than a one-time initial receiving of the Holy Spirit, but it's an ongoing fire. Remember, the golden altar of incense that was just before the veil. The veil is the door. Yeshua is there just before you get into the Holy of Holies. That golden altar of incense, it burned. It was a sweet smell that came up before the Father. And it continuously burned. It was never to be put out. It must be kept burning. Because it's one thing to sit up and listen to the knowledge that Yah has given to others, but it's a different thing when you learn it from the Spirit on your own. I get things from different, I have certain people that I listen to because I can discern of the Spirit to see if they be of Yah and what they're teaching. And I get joy from listening to other people. But I get a greater joy when something that I have learned has come from me doing the work and studying on my own. It's one thing to watch the work being done, but it's another thing to pray to the Father and be led by the Spirit to be moved to do something without somebody asking you. It's a different thing. Because I had people all the time when we did conferences, and I put these things together, and then someone else will come along and want to take over, or I want to do this, and I want to do this, and it's kind of like, this is the vision, this is what He's given to me. If you're coming along, if you've been given a vision, whatever it is He's given to you, what can I do to support you? I'm not coming to take over what He's given to you to do, but I will definitely support you. But again, it's still, at the same time, after so long, there's got to be something in you to say, what can I do? And so if you're struggling in the flesh, it's because you're still living in the flesh. Because how we lived yesterday and what we learned yesterday will not continue to sustain us 10 years from now if there's no growth. I can sit here and I can teach my butt off every week after week. If there's no growth, why are you listening? It's pointless. What you learned last week, last year from me, it's not sustaining you if 5-10 years from now you still sucking on the bottle. You still got to continuously repent from the same things and continuously have to be cleansed over and over again. When he said that we shouldn't have to be doing that. You're supposed to be moving to maturity. There should be some growth. Because our Messiah should not come back and having given you talents 5 or 10 years ago only to come back and find out that you did absolutely nothing with it. And this is not to say that we do not or we cannot listen to teachers. Yah has sent or he has given charge for teachers and pastors to lead his people. But this walk is not about you spending the rest of your life since you came in truth about one person leading and doing all the work while you sit around 5, 10, 20 years and you remain stagnant, never growing. Your service is just completely, I'm just coming, I'm listening, or I'm coming to fellowship, read the scriptures you tell me to read, get the revelation you give to me. I go home 5, 10 years from now, I'm still doing the same thing. There's no growth on my part. That's the problem. There's nothing in you that has compelled you to say, what can I do? This walk is not about sitting up under one person, letting them do all the work. They do all the leading. They do all the studying while you remain 5, 10, 20 years, you're stagnant, you're not growing. It's about learning through his teachers. He gives us teachers and pastors and prophets and leaders to edify us, but for the purpose that we can grow into maturity and grow into sons who have a desire to take what we have learned to go and make other disciples as Yeshua commanded his 12. It's to edify the body that we can come into the full knowledge of who the Messiah is in unity. I can't get to everybody. But if there's 20, 30, 40 of you who listening to me every week, there's things that you could be doing on your own outside of me. Because there's people that I listen to. But that doesn't stagnate my growth. That doesn't stagnate my relationship and what Yah's calling me to do. Because each and every one of us has to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. You are not meant to remain an unlearned babe, an immature servant who after 5, 10, how many ever years, you still on milk. You're still in need of a teacher because you yourself haven't done the work. Go to Hebrews chapter 6 and 1 quickly. Hebrews 6 and 1 says, therefore, let us leave the elementary teachings. Now, this is coming, listen to this. Let us leave the elementary teachings about Yeshua and go on to maturity. I'm going to read this again. Hebrews 6 and 1. Therefore, let us leave the elementary teachings about Yeshua and go on to maturity, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith in Yah. And we shouldn't need to keep teaching about baptism or about the laying on of hands or about people being raised from the dead and about the future judgment. He said, look, how long we going to, in the Christian church, I'm telling you, from the time I was in there all the way up until he brought me out in my mid-30s, all they was doing was talking about love every week. I didn't learn hardly anything until I came out. till I was forced when I came out, so that I wouldn't be completely lost. Through the leading of his set apart spirit, through me being diligent, through me on my own, even though I didn't know anything because I had to start all over again, he retaught me. His set apart spirit retaught me. His set apart spirit brought into remembrance all things as he promised that the set apart spirit would when he left to go back to the Father. I didn't start out being strong in the word. I started out as a babe, immature, not knowing much, learning elementary things, but elementary things that are in truth, not the falsehood I was learning in Christianity. But he says you shouldn't have to be in need of somebody got to keep teaching you about the elementary things. You should be at a point where now you can go on to maturity. Paul said, some of I shouldn't have to keep teaching you this. He said, but many of you still in need of milk. He's saying you shouldn't be. Let me say this. We don't want to go about it in the way of the Pharisees, who were all about head knowledge because they were void of the Spirit. Many in Israel, they think because they're very learned in the word, but they lack the Spirit, and many of them are not walking in obedience. They may know it, but they're not doing it. We don't want to go about this walk the way that the Pharisees did, who were puffed up and boasting with knowledge, but they were void of the Spirit. And I'll say this. When we fully surrender our hearts, because it really comes down to having an undivided heart. When you fully surrender your heart and your lives to him, you will have less man encounters and more Yah encounters. I'm going to say this again. When you fully surrender your heart and your life to him, you will have less man encounters and you will have more Yah encounters. And this is where we should desire to be. When I say have more Yah encounters, I mean more encounters where you are coming into things because of the leading of the set-apart spirit, the chastising, the pruning, whatever that may be. It's because it is coming from him, and not everything that you're coming into is because you are constantly in need of somebody to have to keep teaching you about things that you should be able to move on from. When we fully surrender our hearts to him, that's when we're going to begin to walk in his manifest power. And the number one reason why the world does not fear Yah today, is because most of the believers of this generation, they don't fear him. That's why a lot of kids don't respect the teachers, because the parents don't respect the teachers. And I'll go further. The salt of today's churches is a salt that has no flavor. So that means it's useless. They out here thinking they pouring salt, but it's really sugar. The churches of today don't have the impact or the influence on the world that they should. Don't let this be you. Ask Yah to set your heart ablaze, meaning on fire again. Ask him to set your heart free from those desires and those things that are hindering your walk with him. Ask Yah to truly come into your heart and fill your heart with his ruach and leave no room for anything else but him. Let's go to what should be a very sobering scripture. This is the scriptural focus for today's teaching, Mark 9. We're really getting ready to get into it because we're heading close to the end and we're getting ready to really get into it. We're getting ready to get into the meat of this teaching. So we're going strong to the end. So if you're listening, please do not, now is not the time to get up, because we're getting ready to heat up with a strong finish, I promise you. Let's go to Mark 9:49. Again, which is the scriptural focus for today's teaching. Mark 9:49 says, "For everyone will be salted with fire, And so what does this mean? What does this mean when he says everyone will be salted with fire? Well, when you read verse 50 says, salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, what will it be seasoned with? Having salt among yourselves, he says, have salt among yourselves and be at peace with one another. So the Messiah is saying, look, everybody is going to be salted with fire. That's a promise. He says, so therefore have salt among yourselves and be at peace with one another. What does he mean by that? Have salt among yourselves, be at peace with one another. Another version says, salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? You must have the qualities of salt among yourselves and live in peace with each other. So this clearly refers to the disciples' commission to serve as the salt of this world. And I'll explain this a little more in a moment. So since Yeshua said that we must have the qualities of salt among us, among ourselves and live in peace, don't you think we need to know what qualities salt has? So some of the things I found out and a few observations about salt, especially in those times, salt was it's very valuable now, and it was definitely valuable then. In fact, some people's salaries were paid with salt. That's how valuable salt was. But it says salt was very valuable. Okay? Salt is connected, and even now, because I even use it now, salt is connected with healing and purity. So sometimes, I don't know if you might have it in your house. I have a bag in there, like Epsom salt. It has minerals in it. It takes away soreness. So salt is connected with healing and connected with purity. Okay? Sometimes salt water is applied to infections and wounds. Salt is also connected to preservation. Okay? To preserve. Okay? And so in the years before we had refrigeration, salt was one of the most common ways that they would preserve meat and fish. Okay? Before the days of refrigeration, they would use salt to preserve their meat. And salt definitely is connected with what? Flavor. So we know that salt adds spice to the life. It brings out the flavor in any food. I don't use the iodized salt, but I use the Himalaya salt. That's the one I use. It has the minerals, okay? And so, also salt is also connected with worship and covenant. And we're going to find out why that I say this in a moment. And so, again, what is the connection between salt and fire and our salvation? Well, salt is a spiritual element that purifies sacrifices. Again, when you brought the sacrifice, you normally brought the animal, right? The meat. We know that salt purifies the meat and before refrigeration, okay? And so salt purifies the sacrifice. Purify means to cleanse, okay? It keeps it from spoiling or from being destroyed. And when we make our meals, if you eat meat or chicken or whatever, how many of you listening now put salt? Some type of salt, on your meat or salt on your meals. Or I put, if I have a boiled egg, I put salt on it. I mean, it's just some things, if you don't have salt, it just has the food. You don't even want to eat it unless it has salt on it, okay? And I know that's how my son is. But as we speak about fire, salt and fire, the Messiah promised us the Holy Spirit, the set-apart Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, okay? He promised us the set-apart Spirit, and he promised us fire, right? Well, we know that the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart Spirit, is the seal of our salvation, right? Because we know what Ephesians 4:30 says, do not grieve the set-apart Spirit, because by it you are sealed until the day of redemption, meaning you are sealed or preserved until the Messiah returns, okay? This is what this means. You are preserved until he comes back to redeem you. Remember, fire refines you and purifies you, a.k.a. cleanses you, a.k.a. purges you. This is when you're in the second component of the tabernacle, the holy place, okay? So to make certain that you are holy or set apart, you live in a perfect, and that you are a perfect living sacrifice, and that you remain pleasing in the eyes of our Master when he returns, then you're going to have to go through that fire. You're going to have to go through that purification. Both salt and fire preserve and purify. And I want to bring something else out. Did you know that redeem, the word redeem, because he says that do not grieve the set apart spirit, because by it you are sealed until the day of redemption. Did you know that the word redeem, did you know this is another word for redeem, or another word synonym for redeem, and you might want to write this down, is purify? Did you know that? Redeem means to purify. How many of you knew that? I did not know that until I was doing this study. When he says, do not grieve the set-apart spirit, because by it you are sealed until the day of redemption. Did you know that redeem, another synonym for redeem, is purify? This means that this entire time, when our Abba Yah is taking us through the fire and pleading with us to be set apart and to be cleansed, did you know that this entire time that he has been trying, he's been trying to purify us the entire time? This is what is meant when it says that he is trying to redeem us. When he is trying to redeem us, he is trying to purify us. I'm gonna look, according to thesource.com, you can look it up yourself right now. To purify means to redeem. This is why he says over and over and over again, be ye set apart, for your Father in heaven is set apart, because he cannot dwell in the presence of sin. Yah longs, as I said earlier at the beginning of the teaching, Yah longs to dwell with his people. And so this entire time, he's been wanting to dwell with us, but because many of us refuse to live a set-apart life, pure and be free from sin, he can't. This is what it's been mean this entire time. When he's taking us through the fire, he's trying to purify you. He's not doing it to hurt you, to destroy you. But he's doing it so that he can eventually see you on the other side of that door, so that you can get past that holy place and come into his presence and be in the Holy of Holies. Go to Leviticus 2:13 quickly. Leviticus 2:13 says, season all your grain offerings with salt. This is a command. We're reading Torah. Leviticus 2:13 says, season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your Yah out of your grain offerings. Are you looking at this? Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your Yah out of your grain offerings. Add salt to all of your offerings. Add salt to all of your offerings. Are you looking at this? Yah is commanding Israel, do not leave salt out of your offerings. He's calling salt the salt of the covenant. So Yah himself is a preservative to Israel. When he asked them to give or to add salt to all of their offerings. He was asking them to give up something that was needful, something that was not so easily replaced. Remember, there were people who were paid their salary when they worked. Their salary was paid with salt. That's how valuable salt was. To have salt, it was a valuable thing because you can preserve your meat. And so when he said to season all your grain offerings, when you bring an offering to me, don't leave the salt of the covenant out of it. Add salt to everything you offer up to me. Make sure salt is added to it. He asked them to do this because he knew that this would be them giving up something that was needful, something that, again, is not so easily replaced. He was asking them to trust him. He wanted them to know that although you're giving up something that is valuable and meaningful to you, I will sustain you. I will preserve you. And what better way than to show our trust to him by sacrificing something that means so much to us? This is what Abraham was willing to do. Look what happened with Job. Go to Chronicles 13:5 because I was practically on the floor when I saw this because I didn't even know this. 2 Chronicles 13:5. 2 Chronicles 13:5. Don't you know that the Most High, the Almighty One of Israel, has given the kingship of Israel to David and his descendant forever by a covenant of salt? Are you looking at this? Did you know that the covenant that Yah made with Israel and David and his descendants, which is us, forever, he said, was made by a covenant of salt? And so the covenant of salt not only refers to loyalty and faithfulness, because that's what this is symbolic of, loyalty and faithfulness, but it also refers to the imperishable and irrevocable covenant that he and Israel made with one another. And from what I learned about the salt covenant, the only way to break the covenant would be to separate each grain of salt from one another and return it to their original owner. Now, this is absolutely impossible. So this means that this covenant that was established by salt was a bond that would remain forever. This is the reason why when you read 2 Chronicles 13:5, he says, "Don't you know that I gave the kingship of Israel to David and his descendants forever?" And he said, I made this covenant by a covenant of salt. This means this is irrevocable. Are you looking at this? This is imperishable. It is irrevocable. When we read Numbers 18, go to Numbers 18 quickly. Numbers 18 through 20. I'm going to do 19 through 20, I'm sorry. When we read Numbers 18, 19 through 20, let's look at this. All the heave offerings of the holy things which the son of Israel shall lift up to Yah, I have given to you and to your sons and to your daughters with you by a what? Never-ending statute, a salt of covenant. It says, it shall be forever before Yah to you and to your seed with you. This is Davidic. This is the eternal Davidic covenant. It says, and Yah said to Aaron, you shall have no inheritance in their land, nor shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion, and your inheritance shall be among the sons of Israel. So all that Aaron and his sons had to do was to concentrate on doing the work that he commanded them. And Yah said, I will do the rest. I will preserve you. I have made a covenant, a never-ending statute, a covenant of salt. All I need you to do is you do the work as I commanded you, and I'll do the rest. I will be your salt. I will preserve you. The Blue Letter Bible for covenant of salt, as used in Numbers 18, verse 19, it says, most holy, most holy. The third part of the tabernacle. A covenant of salt, according to Blue Letter Bible, says most holy, most firm. Something that is firm and definitely most firm, that means it is immovable. It is irrevocable. It will never change. It is forever. It says most holy, most firm, because such a covenant consecrated salt was eating. So for this is a Blue Letter Bible. When a covenant was like this, that was made, that was eternal, the Blue Letter Bible says that this was the most holy and the most firm covenant, because this type of covenant, it says, consecrated salt was eaten. So this alludes to a covenant that will be internalized. They would eat consecrated salt. And so not only was salt in and of itself an essential nutrient to sustain life, it was meant to make peace when entering into a covenant, which what we call today, when we make a peace treaty, we call this a peace treaty. Yeshua said, look, so make sure that salt is among you and be in peace. This is what he meant when he said this. Salt is like, and when they would make a covenant with salt, this was like a peace treaty. Something that is irrevocable. That's why in Mark 9 and 50, Yeshua said, let salt be in you and be at peace with one another. Peace treaty. In ancient times, again, salt had great value due to its ability to preserve the food for longer periods of time. It also was healing. It kept the animals healthy. Again, some employees were paid with salt. That's where you get the term, if you ever heard anyone say his worth is weight in salt, have you ever heard that? That's where that comes from. And so the meaning behind Mark 9 and 49, where it says everyone will be salted with fire, the metaphor for both salt and fire signifies the same thing, and this is purification. That is the connection that salt and fire has, purification. We have already seen how salt purifies, and fire, it does the same thing because it refines. Go to 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 20 through 21. 2 Kings, chapter 2, verses 20 through 21. Elijah said, bring me a new bowl and put salt into it. When they had brought it to him, Elijah went out to the spring and threw salt into it, saying, thus says Yah, I have purified this water. Never again shall death or sterility come from it. So are you looking at this? Even Elijah knew. To purify the water, he went and put salt in it. Salt is also used as the Messiah, as a metaphor to describe our role in bringing people to the Father. Go to Luke 14, verses 33 through 35. Luke 14, 33 through 35, it says, so then every one of you who does not forsake all his possessions is not able to be my disciples. I'm going to say it again. So then, every one of you who does not forsake all his possession is not able to be my disciple. Salt is good, but if salt becomes bland, what good is it for? If it is not fit for soil nor for manure, then you throw it out. The one having ears to hear, let him hear. If you have ears to hear today, you better hear what the Spirit is saying. He is equating salt to describe your role in bringing people to the Father. salt is good, but if salt has become bland, then what good is it to be seasoned with? If it's not fit for soil or manure, then I'm going to throw it out. He says the one having ears to hear, let him hear. Go to Matthew 5 and 13, because Yeshua came to this and he told them what? Go to Matthew 5 and 15. And Matthew 5 and 13, I'm sorry. In Matthew 5 and 13, Yeshua says, you are the salt of the earth. I'm going to say this again. He's talking to his disciples, not believers, but disciples. He said in Matthew 5 and 13, you are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. Salt is not only meant to preserve, but it's meant to enhance. According to the Blue Letter Bible, salt, in the context in which it is being spoken of in Matthew 5 and 13, where he says, you are the salt. It says salt with which food is seasoned and sacrifices are sprinkled. It says salt is which with food is seasoned and sacrifices is sprinkled. Salt is symbolic of a lasting concord because it protects foods from decaying. It also says that it preserves it preserves it unchanged. It says, according in the solemn ratifications of compacts, this is a practice that continues to this day in some cultures where they're going to make a compact or a covenant. They partake in salt together. This is the problem in our churches today. Because we are the salt. We are the sacrifices. We go out here and sacrifice ourselves every time we go out here and we're trying to live a yali life. Every time we defend truth. This is the problem with the church today. The problem with today's church is the lack of salt. The church is the main reason why so-called believers are running amok. Nobody is being salted. No one is being purified. Holiness is not being preserved. In fact, the so-called pastors are out here telling people that they don't need salt. Oh, here, take this low sodium. Low sodium is the latest craze. But again, as I said earlier, I'm still continuing to expand. Yeshua was commissioning his disciples to serve as the salt of this world because of its importance. So what I mean when it says to serve as the salt of this world, we are supposed to be the preservers of all that is righteous and all that is set apart. We're not called to blend in. Because if you're bland, he says if you got salt and the salt has lost its saltiness, what good is it if it's bland? We're not called to be bland or to blend in. We're called to stand out. If you're bland, that means you have blended in. There's nothing about you that's different, sounds different, looks different, tastes different. Like when you put salt on food, it tastes different. It stands out. We're called to stand out as those who are seasoned, as those who are drenched in all of Yah's purity. But again, the church has lost its salt. In fact, it's sweeter than it's ever been. The church is sweeter than it's ever been. All you hear in the church is watered down, sugary sweet, Yah knows your heart messages that never challenges sinners to repent. And so as we continue to talk about salt and fire and their connection and their purpose, let's go to 1 Peter 4:12 and 13. We're heading towards the end. 1 Peter 4:12 through 13. We're going to read this because we're told to embrace the fire. We're told to embrace the fire, not to run from it, like they tell you in the Christian church. that you're not going to go through anything. Everything's going to be all right. 1 Peter 4:12 and 13. Beloved, do not be astonished at the fiery trial happening to you for your testing. I'm going to read this again. Do not be astonished. Don't think of this strange. Don't be surprised at the fiery, and not just any trial. Look at this. He said the fiery trial that is happening to you for your testing. He says, as if it is a surprise that this is occurring to you. We should not be surprised when we're going through the fire of affliction. He says, but rejoice that you participate in the sufferings of the Messiah, so you may also rejoice and exult at the revelation of his glory. When we are salted with fire, this simply means that we will be tested to determine if our faith is strong and true. Salt represents our faith. Fire is our testing. I'm going to say this again. Salt represents the faith, and fire represents the testing. So what kind of salt? Are you a salt that has season, that has flavor? Are you a salt? Is your faith bland? Is it blending in? Is it compromising? Is your faith divided? Fire is the test, and when that salt is put in the fire, that's why Yeshua said everyone will be salted with fire, and not some of you. He said everyone, because when that salt is put in the fire, it is going to test what manner of it. If this faith is of the Messiah, or if this faith is really not of him. That's why today's teaching is entitled Salted with Fire, because he said everyone is going to be salted with fire. Your salt, your faith is going to be put in the fire. It's going to be tested, and then fire is going to tell the truth of what your faith is, whether it be if the works that you're doing are of him or if it's not. So when we are tested, the true bride is expected to be persistent in her faith. She is expected to stand. The true bride is meant to be transformed by the message of the good news. We're expected to choose truth over confidence. Or not confidence, but convenience. The bride is expected to choose, or not. The bride is expected to lose her life over trying to save her life, is what I'm trying to say. We are expected to take sin so seriously, so serious to the point that we're willing to allow his fire to purify us now so that we don't have to face the lake of fire later, because we refuse to go through the purification process to prune and to mold us into who he had purposed for us to be. Remember Lot's wife, because we get ready to get into Lot's wife now. What happened to her? Did she not turn into a pillar of salt? According to the Blue Letter Bible, to look back, because she looked back, and when she looked back, according to the Blue Letter Bible, to look back meant to look intently at by implication. It says to regard with pleasure, favor, or care. To cause to behold, to consider, or to look, or to have regard or respect to. So to show regard to is the same thing as having a strong desire for something, especially if he told you don't do it. Because anything that keeps you returning back to it means that it has a stronghold on you. Yah says that only a dog returns back to its vomit to lick it up, and only a pig is going to return to wallow in the mud again after it has been cleansed. And so I know that we have read Genesis version about Sodom and Gomorrah and Yah's urgent command to not only flee Sodom because Yah was getting ready to destroy it, but the command that while fleeing, he told them, don't you look back. Now, knowing what we know now, this was more than just a physical command to not look back, but also a spiritual one. So I want to read quickly, and you can just listen in. You can write it down, but I'm going to read this quickly. I'm reading from the book of Jasher, and I'm going to read verses 44 through 53. You can go back and read the whole chapter if you want. But just quickly, before I begin reading this, in this book of Jasher is dealing with Lot and his wife and his children, his daughters. And his daughters had married someone that was from Sodom, and they had a law in Sodom that they were not to show compassion to the poor. And so there was this poor man who was laying in the streets. He was poor, near death, hungry, thirsty, and no one would feed him. And they took pleasure in seeing this. And so Lot's daughter, who was married to someone that was of Sodom and Gomorrah, she ended up having compassion and was sneaking to feed him bread and water. And when they got wind of the fact that she was doing this secretly, they watched to find out who was doing it. And when they found out that it was her, they burned her alive for doing this. And then right after that, there was a woman who also was showing compassion. They had these laws where they were just showing no compassion. And they actually rubbed honey all over her and put her near a beehive until the bees stung her till she swelled to death. And so in addition to all the other things that was going on with Sodom and Gomorrah, once that happened, Yah was finally, he had enough. So when we read, and this is all in Joshua chapter 19, you can go back and read the whole thing. I'm only going to begin at reading at verse 44 through 53. Joshua 19:44. And Yah was provoked at this and all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had an abundance of food and had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sin became great before Yah. And Yah sent for two of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house. And he gave them victuals, which they ate. Victuals, which is Victuals, victuals, which they ate. And I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. And they abode all night in his house. So when he says that he gave them victuals and they ate, according to Strong Hebrews 4241, victuals mean, it says preservation of life, also the live flesh, and to preserve life. We know that salt preserves life. It also says food, okay, according to Strong Hebrews 3899. It says food, especially grain or bread, and then it says meat, okay? And so they ate. The source.com for victuals says daily bread. Daily bread. Give us this day our daily bread, but it says daily bread for victuals. And it says food and nourishment. So I'm almost certain that this was a covenant that was made with salt, because they were always commanded to add salt to their grains and to their meat, as we read earlier. That's why I set you up with that, so that when we got here, you will be, you will have the understanding. So, Book of Joshua 19, verse 47. So after he gave them it says he pressed them greatly and brought them in his house, and he gave them victuals which they ate, and they abode all night in his house. And the angel said to Lot, arise, go forth from this place, you and those belonging to you, unless you be consumed in the iniquity of this city, for the Most High will destroy this place. And the angels laid hold upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his children, and all belonging to them. And they brought him forth and set him without the cities. And they said to Lot, escape for your life. And he fled, and all belonging to him. Then Yah rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah and upon all these cities brimstone and fire from the Most High out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plains, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. And Ado, so Watts, in the book of Jasher, it says that Lot's wife name was Ado, A-D-O. It says, and Ado, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, those who did not want to go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place until this day. Another version says, but Lot's wife looked back as she lingered behind him. And one more version says, Lot's wife looked back longingly, and was turned into a pillar of salt. So this basically, Jasher is really explaining a lot more. What I'm reading in Jasher, Jasher 19 is basically saying that she had a strong desire for what Yah told her to leave behind, and unfortunately, her desires cost her her life, because although she was running forward, she was also looking back at the same time, which meant that she was what? Double-minded. Again, she lost her life because of it and was turned into a pillar of salt. Because remember, the covenant was established with what? What was the covenant established with? Salt. And salt is what was most likely given when they had the meal, because everything was prepared with the salt. He told them to add salt to all your grains and your meat. This is the salt of the covenant. So she most likely broke the salt covenant, and this is thereby the reason why she most likely turned into a pillar of salt, which was a reminder of the covenant that she broke. She looked back. Why did she look back? Because she was worried about her daughters who wanted to remain in Sodom. They didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go. So because on account of her compassion for her daughters who were wicked and wanted to remain with the wickedness, he told her not to look back. She was moved. She had compassion. It was a point in Scripture where y'all said, don't even pray for these people no more, because I'm getting ready to destroy them. Don't even pray for them. It comes to a point where all you can do is pray for your family, for your children, for your friends. But I'm not going down. As much as I love my son, I'm not going down for nobody. I'm not going down for I'm not getting ready to lose my salvation for nobody. You want to stay here? Fine. I'm moving on. I'm not going to look back. She had compassion. The scripture, the gesture says, she had compassion on her daughters who moved on. It says her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom. They didn't want to go, and it says when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt. I always wonder why she became a pillar. A pillar of salt. A pillar is like a statue. This is a memorial. This is something that you can remember, because he did say earlier when I was reading about this being a never-ending statue. She became a statue showing that you broke the covenant of salt. I told you, I commanded you. He said run for your lives. When somebody say run for your lives, you know if you look back, that slows you down. You can get destroyed, and that's exactly what happened. Worrying about somebody else. She delayed. Just like when Yeshua told the man, look, drop everything and come follow me. He told me, I got to go take care of my father. He was upset about that. That's why he said, let the dead bury their dead. People thought that was harsh, but they didn't understand what was going on. He read the heart. There was delay on this man in moving. It's another word for excuses, for you to delay. And so it appears definitely that Lot's wife delayed when she ignored Yah's command not to look back, because remember, when we read Luke 9:62, it says, no one who puts his hands to the plow and look back is fit for the kingdom. That's why she turned into a pillar of salt. The Messiah warned us. Nobody who puts his hand to the plow and look back is fit for the kingdom. That's why she turned into the pillar of salt, because our covenant was everlasting. What our people was made with salt. Paul said the same thing. Quickly go to Philippians 3:13. He reminds us. In Philippians 3:13, Paul says, brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have laid hold of it. He says, but one thing I do know for sure, forgetting what is behind me and looking toward what is ahead. I don't have time to keep looking back and remembering what I used to do when I was back in the club and when I was still in the world. He says, look, I'm forgetting that. I want to forget that because that's when I was a heathen. No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom. Only a dog returns to his vomit. Only a pig will go back and wallow in the mud after you've been cleansed and removed from it. You want to go back. Oh, I love that mud. Oh, I remember when I was covered and it was up my nostril. Now you a pillar of salt, worried about Porky Pig. 1 Corinthians 3:15 says, if anyone builds on this foundation of the Messiah using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, straw, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. It will be revealed with fire, and fire will test the quality of everyone's work. If what has been built survives or lasts, the builder will receive a reward, but if it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, but yet will be saved, yet as one escaping through the flames. So this again is once again telling us that if you are doing any work, whatever foundation you laying or building upon, if it is of him, the fire, when you go through the fire, it's going to reveal and test the quality of your work. So now we coming to the end of this teaching. I want to say this before I call Prini in. We need to be filled with his power so that we can be a fire to be reckoned with in the kingdom of darkness. Because otherwise, you're like salt with no seasoning. You're bland. You're useless. Good for nothing. Satan is not afraid of nobody who get up every day and they not doing nothing for the king. He's not worried about you. People always talk about, oh, Satan working, Satan busy. Satan ain't busy with nobody that's doing nothing. He's worried about that person who getting up, and when they get up, they down on their knees praying. He's worried about the person before they go to bed, they down on their knees praying. He's worried about the person who's fasting. He's worried about the person who's walking in obedience and who's being led by the fire. He's worried about people who are doing the work of the harvest and out here saving souls and snatching souls out the fire. That's who he's worried about. He's not worried about you and your little measly stuff that you got going on in your life, talking about Satan busy. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about how many scriptures you know but don't follow. He's not worried about all your Hebrew outfit, your tassel, your beard, but yet you still fornicating. We need to be filled with his power so that we can be a fire to be reckoned with in the kingdom of darkness. Again, if you're not, you're useless salt. You don't have no season. That means you're bland. You bland, you don't stand out. You blending in. Nobody even know you there. Nobody even knows anything that you're doing because nothing is standing out because you're not doing anything. Ask the Father to reveal to you where you are lacking and ask him to help you. But when he's sending help, that help sometimes may come in the form of him sending people to you. At some point, he's going to stop sending people because you're being a reprobate. He's not going to keep warning you. You have to make the change before it's too late. You have to stop delaying. You have to stop looking back. The door is open, but that door is narrow What's on that other side, if it is what you want, and you got on all the stuff that he's telling you to let go of, you got to let go of and get down naked and get rid of it in order to get to the door. He said that the righteous will barely make it in. So if you don't want to strip and let go, well, come on. You got to help him out. He's coming soon, and you don't want him to return and have him return and ask you, what have you done while I was away? Don't get to the point where he has to break you all the way down until you finally standing before him naked, and that means you're ashamed. You don't want to be the least in the kingdom. I'm done, Prina.
Toda praise be to Yah. Just another powerful lesson as it links to the tabernacle of Yah. Just learning about just the Salt Covenant was just, I was just in awe. But to start off, like the beginning, I'm going to give you a knock-knock scenario.
Oh, the knock-knock? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, that really like set the tone, and just, you know, like you said, just being able to strip yourself of whatever is preventing you from going through that narrow door, and just going over, you know, what to strive mean, you know, to struggle to contest, and which is fight, and to compete for the prize. But what also stood out was just learning about the thorn bush.
Oh yeah, that one was a big one
like,
for me.
Oh my goodness! And how it also connected with the three the Abednego boys.
The three Hebrews, yeah.
The Hebrew boys that went through the fire that, you know, were became actually the thorn.
Yes.
You know, withstanding that temperature, you know, so it because Yeshua was that vine and they were of the branch. So, I mean, just that linkage and just learning of just what the significance of a thorn bush, because I did not know, you know.
No, me either. I learned
the significance of the thorn bush and how it is modified, you know, branches It's modified branches, which you stated to change or to convert. So that was just like an awe moment for me, and just learning, you know, how you went more in depth with the courts, the outer court.
Yeah, and three, like the number three and the components of three, the three heavens. Yep.
Yes, and the three. Heavens, I mean, I was just...
Daniel, yep, Daniel too. Yeah, it was so much with this. I was like...
It was multifaceted like the last one, you know, and just at the end, just learning what the you know, what the Salt Covenant was, and how it connected to Lot's wife, you know, and...
I always wonder why she was with the pillar of salt, but that just this cleared it up, because that's a Salt Covenant. She had broken.
Yes, and so that was just like, oh my goodness, you know. So all of this, you know, was just awesome, just to know, and like you were saying that, you know, just learning the difference between salt and fire and how they both connected, you know, and how salt is for purification and, you know, just enhancing, and fire is for refining and you know.
It's like almost. And that almost just represents your faith, that salt, and the fire for the testing. They like go hand in hand.
Yes. Yeah, so I was just like in awe of that, and just, you know, when you read the I think it was the Blue Letter Bible for Covenant of Salt. Where you were saying most holy, most firm, you know, and then how it links to the tabernacle of Yah, the holies of holies. I mean, so this was just in awe, and just a deepening level of, you know, Yah's tabernacle, and just also helping you to examine like where you are at in this tabernacle of Yah, and to get you to see where you are at, and to basically, are you going to be moving forward to maturity, or are you going to stay where you at? Because in the end, like you said, if you are sought, since we are sought, if you have no flavor and you're bland because you chose not to move forward, then you're going to be cast away. So this was yet another deep lesson, with the tabernacle and extended part of the tabernacle of Yah. So it was awesome. Toda Yah. And I like how you read Jasher.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had read that a couple of weeks ago with Lot's wife.
Mhm.
Yes. So how it actually go into the true, to give you more insight on why she became that pillar of salt. So this was just yet another heart-searching, and not only heart-searching, but just a warning, that we are called to be the salt of the earth, and we're going to go through trials, and we're going to struggle, but we have to endure, and most definitely we have to choose, because the choice is ours, to either, on our maturity level, where are we going to go in the next phase of Yah in our life. So just another heart-searching lesson, too. I believe that it was. And a warning also.
Yes, for everybody.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. Because, we have to, we all have things that we need to be doing. And definitely, I think a lot of people think that this walk is just, I just, about the head. It's not about head knowledge.
Yeah.
It's about, are you walking out and living out what you know? You know what I'm saying? Are you actually doing the work? Are you being of service and being the salt? It's so much more to it, because you're serving others,
and I like
everybody.
how you put those scriptures of the works of the Father, like what the works of the Father were, of spreading the good news, those that you gave, to show that this is more than just, maturity is not just head knowledge, but it's, being a forerunner for Yah, and showing your studying to show yourself approved, battling, in prayers, using the word of Yah, and standing without wavering, not being double-minded. So, this was just another lesson to help the bride be prepared for the Most High Yah, and for you, Yeshua, when He comes. And I just love it. It was just awesome. Toda Yah.
Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead just for time's sake now, because I tried my best. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm trying. I try so hard to.
Well, you got to remember. We watch it, like you said, a long movie. I think some things you can't cut out, and then this was, it was pivotal to understand, why Moses questioned why the bush wasn't burnt. All of these things that you put in here linked, and I think you have a full understanding of what it means to be the salt. The salt covenant, what the salt covenant actually meant and represented. And I think when you leave things out, where you cut things short, especially when it's pivotal, I think you know what I'm saying? I don't think you should cut it short, sis. You did a wonderful job. I know we worry about time, but this is the Sabbath, and this is the day that we supposed to be spending time and learning in Him. So, Toda Yah, praise be to Yah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have you lead us out with
okay,
with
yes. And this is David, and he's blessing Yah, and I love this. This is 1 Chronicles 29, verse 10 through 13, and verse 18. And David blessed Yah before the eyes of all the congregation. And David said, "Blessed are you, O Yah, the power of Israel, our Father, forever and ever. To you, O Yah, be the greatness and the power and the high esteem and the victory and the majesty. For all in the heavens and the earth belongs to you. O Yah, yours is the kingdom, and you lift up yourself to all as head. And the riches and the honor come before you, and you rule over all. And in your hand is power and might. And it is in your hand to make great and to give strength to all. And now, our power, we are giving thanks to you and giving praise to your high esteemed name. O Yah, the power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our fathers. Keep this forever for the intent of the thoughts of the heart of your people, and prepare their heart toward you. In Yeshua's name, so be it.
In Yeshua's name, so be it. So we pray that you will definitely share this lesson as well as last week's lesson. And I have a few that I'll just continue to share. And so we pray that you will enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.